Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's time for the best damn comic book related podcast and YouTube program you're ever going to find. The Comics Aficionados live right here every Saturday on the channel. It's time to have a little bit of fun. We got a great panel for us this week. We got Aaron Sparrow. Normally you're not up early enough to join a Comics Aficionados. How you doing, buddy?
I am always up this early on a Saturday, but I am always on my way to a show. So this is the first time I've had a free Saturday, but I'm doing all right. I can't believe you guys get up early to do this voluntarily, though, when you don't have to.
It's 10 p.m. here. I'm good.
Oh, yeah, you're fine.
It's 10 a.m. here. I don't really give a shit. I mean, I've been up for 4 hours already.
I'm so done with West Coast time.
Aaron's used to playing with his toys at this point in the morning. Well, I sell a Frodo today. Also with us here on the panel is from Bleeding Fool. We got Chris Brawley. I guess I've been mispronouncing your name forever.
It's okay. When bill collectors call and they ask for Mr. Braley, I say that nobody goes by that name here. So it's Brawley. Thanks, Wes.
Never heard of him. Well, I appreciate you joining up. Anything in particular going on at Bleeding Fool that people need to know about? Any big articles in the pipeline?
We got some things cooking I can't talk about, but basically we're playing catch up with all the news you want to talk about today. So you're on point, brother.
Oh, well, there we go. We try to be on the cutting edge, at least keeping up with all the things happening. Who else we got this week? We got Drew from Comics Elite. How you doing, Drew?
Doing great, Wes. Great to be here. And Aaron, Chris, nice to meet you guys.
Man. So, Drew, what kind of exclusive covers you guys got next week? Everybody was really excited about those Dark Knights of Steel covers this week.
Oh, you mean these two right here by Tyler Kirkham and Carla Cohen?
Yeah.
I can't say yet for next week.
Oh my goodness!
Sean's
Everybody's
just secrecy. Sean is like, don't say anything about this. You can say this, but you can't say this. All right, fine.
All right, I get it. I do want to give a special thank you to Metal Clergy for the super sticker and support of the channel early today. Really appreciate the support for the channel. And who else we got? We got the two mainstays. We've got the Batman aficionado. He's also a comic book reviewer for BatmanNews.com, as well as a pop culture. Are you an influencer at popbyculture.com, Josh?
Oh, please do not call me an influencer.
You're an influencer.
I'm shutting everything down. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gonna start walking into random I'm just gonna go into random comic shops and be like, I'm a comic book influencer. What can I get for free? I'm all right, man. I've been in a black hole of my day job lately. But I'm here. I'm excited to talk about comics. I did see Eternals last night, so I know we're discussing that a little bit. And yeah, we'll have a good chat. I'm happy to see Aaron and Chris on here. Welcome, guys.
Yeah, thank you. You can get out of your day job if you lean more into the influencer side. You just need to post more loot.
Yes.
I probably could. I don't know if I want to.
Also with us is the Marvel aficionado, the X-Men historian, Doc. How you doing, Doc?
I'm spectacular. And Chris, it's great to meet you. I don't think we've ever actually had a chance to talk here. But
I thought we had been on a stream too before.
Did we talk about the Whisper Network?
Oh fuck
yeah, with the penny.
Yeah, that was forever ago.
It has been a while. We haven't broken news in a while, I guess.
Yeah. The only time I get phone calls for other people, it's for some lady named Carly, and it's like people asking me to pick up her children from school, and I'm really confused. I almost went to a parent-teacher conference that they invited me to one time. I was going to go and be like, well, who are you? I don't know. You called me and asked me to come to a parent-teacher conference. I don't have fucking kids, but I'm still here.
That would have been strange, Doc.
Yes,
I do believe
that's not the way you want to do it, buddy.
It's a beautiful story.
So we did have somebody ask Chris Brawley from Bleeding Cool. No, Bleeding Cool is Rich Johnson. Chris Brawley is Bleeding Fool.
We are the spiritual successor from the libertarian free speech side of things in the bleeding world of fools and cools. If you have to tell people you're cool, you're clearly not. So that's sort of where we're at.
And then somebody also asked what happened to my beard. All right, so this is what happened to my beard. Drew upped the game last week with his fresh face thing, and I've seen Josh has been coming in with the fresh manicured beard in for weeks now. I just wanted to keep up with the Joneses. You know what I mean? Decided to show it up.
How do you compete with Sparrow here? Good grief!
You don't compete with Sparrow.
Oh, that's the
You
game,
shave
right
the
there.
beard down and you try to compete with the other fools.
Start over, regrow.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
I
a
saw Doc's
shame.
beard earlier.
I was about to say people aren't going to see Doc's beard, and it's on point, man.
Yeah.
Now,
All
it's
he was
a
missing was his eye patch.
We do a big no shave November at my church amongst the men, so some of you guys were already well ahead of the pack. I could say that, well ahead.
I have no shave ever. There's no month before that. It's just no shave ever.
No excuse. You don't need one.
All right. Shall we get into the news? There's a little bit of controversy this week. Obviously, we had the death threat hoax for DC Comics. We had the new comic book workers union with Image stuff going on, and some other news that we're going to hit. We ready to do it? Let's do it.
Sure.
Let's talk about this DC Comics death threat hoax. I don't know. What do you think, Josh? You are the DC aficionado. When you saw this initial headline come out from TMZ, it started getting picked up by other networks or news outlets. They started adding some words in there about death threats and whatnot. I personally was skeptical. What were your thoughts?
I mean, it goes back and forth. I think when you live in Twitter as much as we do, you can believe death threats would happen, whether there's validity to them or not. I guess my stance is, if you look, we're fans, we buy comics, we invest in them, we spend a lot of money to buy comics, and that's probably something we'll touch on later, is the money portion of it. I understand getting upset. If you ever get to a point that you feel like you need to send a death threat, just don't. It's not worth it. It's not that important. The fact that this is potentially turning out to be a hoax, I mean, if we look at DC's marketing strategy and things they've been doing, I think it's a bad look for them, over the past 1.5 to 2 years, especially from the Batcat wedding to the Tom King thing and needing a bodyguard. And now this, like, they're just kind of digging their grave.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make. I'm like, the minute I saw this, I'm like, oh, wait, I already saw this episode. It was where Tom King said that he got death threats and needed a bodyguard. We know that was bullshit, too. I hate repeats.
It was his brother-in-law or something.
Probably.
He's at all the shows. He's at all the conventions just walking around.
Tom King doesn't need a bodyguard. Tom King needs an editor. Like a strong editor.
He's a therapist. Come on.
DC needs strong editor.
Yeah. He needs some lithium is what he needs.
Well,
I mean, I don't know about that, Doc.
Look in the private chat. I think, too, this kind of rubbed me as sort of, this feels like one of those hoaxes. I hate to say race hoax, but, when you find out that a person of color has painted the N-word on their car or something just to get some sort of cry for attention. And I think that Josh and Doc are both right. It feels like, over the summer, DC really ramped up a lot of controversial decisions, whether Superman, making the excuse that Superman's going to be more global, when in fact, it's just an excuse for them not being able to use that slogan anymore, or Superman's now battling climate change while there's a giant creature in the background destroying property and perhaps other people, and of course the bisexuality or whatever that they've leaned into with Robin, and of course we got Catwoman, we got Wonder Woman, we got Green Lantern, we got Aquaman. I mean, more of the Justice League is now gay than straight, and while it isn't surprising that somebody might call and say, quit destroying my favorite characters or whatever, the first moment I read this, I said, look, the LAPD said nothing came of this and nothing happened. And out of an abundance of caution, supposedly they started doing something. But really, I saw Andrew Farago, or however you say his last name, I guess I'm entitled to say last names wrong, was blaming Comicsgate for death threats against DC. And I thought, good grief, we don't even know, number one, who said anything, much less if anyone said anything. But there was this immediate pounce on trying to pinpoint who the bad guys were in this. And this almost seemed like another press release. How much longer are we going to milk the fact that you've made Superman or the son of Superman gay? Let's move on.
Well, never let the truth get in the way of a good narrative. That's that's right out of the play. That's right out of this, the communist playbook that we're working with.
Well, you got a point there.
You know what? Something just dawned on me. Remember when they had that round robin tournament and Justice League Queer lost, this is their way of still making it.
Well, they've got it.
They've already done that, Doc. We've already talked about that. The entire
I
Justice
know.
League is represented now.
Wow,
Yes.
that's great.
Well, I mean,
But we
even
do
that
have,
specific story, they have another one coming out. The jail cube.
We do have Kenneth Dowling in here supporting the channel early. Thank you so much, Kenneth.
Wow.
Hello, guys. Great to see you all. My man Wes with the new trim looks great. Oh, yeah. Look, I even got some lines. What? Can you see them? There they are. Welcome to the new guest. Aaron Sparrow's here. Nice. I've been a fan of your videos with Wes on writing. Welcome, sir. Everyone's glad to see Aaron Sparrow. He's like the if Jimmy wasn't the comic book teddy bear already, it'd be you, sir.
Oh,
You've also-
thank you. You know, I feel
That-
like Jesse Snyder's like nipping at my heels though, as far as popularity on your channel goes.
Well, people did enjoy some of his takes there. He's definitely was a popular guest. I think we'll have Jesse back on here pretty soon. We've also
Jesse's
got Dark
dope.
Admiral. Absolutely. We got Dark Admiral March Hare, one of the supporters from day one. Haven't seen him in a couple weeks. So good to see him back. He says, morning, Wes and all, listening along while driving to a local con. Glad to hear your little one is doing better. Hope everyone has a great day. Well, thank you very much, and definitely thank you to everybody for the thoughts and prayers and well wishes and good vibes that were sent out. The 4-month-old is back. He's feeling much better. In fact, we had his christening today, which is actually the reason that I have this nice beard going on here. I wanted to look presentable for the pictures and whatnot, and I definitely appreciate all that. So thank you very
look
much.
presentable. You look presentable, Wes. Very good.
Thank you. My beard was a little bit out of control there for a minute, for a couple months.
Joe Cool in the comments says you're actually Wes's evil twin.
Who is?
You.
I am.
You are. You're
What?
Wes
Get out of here. No way.
You're Wes's evil
You're the
twin.
same guy.
Yeah.
No, that could be the same guy. I don't know. Aaron, were you as disappointed in me that DC Comics would let two stories go out there? One initially saying that they had to get local police escorts and security, which turns out to be MAS, but then they compounded on it, said they were death threats from their own fans, and they just let that narrative sit out there that DC's fans are bigots, they're hateful, that they're calling it death threats because of these changes. Rather than going and clearing up the record, they have a PR department. They have 3 executives that it would be in their purview or the responsibility to go out there and talk to people and say, yeah, we didn't receive any death threats. These things are all bullshit. The creative teams don't even live in America, so it would be hard for us to send some black and whites to go escort them or patrol around their houses. They just kind of let it out there and made their fans look terrible.
The relationship between the comic companies and the fans has been adversarial for several years now. It's been clear that a lot of the creative teams, a lot of the editorial, a lot of the leadership at the various companies actually despise the fans. They would love to trade them off for some imaginary group that they keep chasing that doesn't keep showing up with their dollars. So, is it disappointing? Yes, but at this point, it's to be expected, and that's kind of the interesting thing. I think that for DC, it would be better to think that their fans are passionate enough to sell death threats, as opposed to the alternative, where their fans have just checked out. Nobody really cares all that much about this change to Jonathan Kent. It's par for the course. It's expected at this point, and so everybody just kind of went, "Oh yeah, here we go."
And there he goes. What happened?
Oh, jeez. I must have upset him. What the heck's going on here?
Daniel Cherry just shut down Aaron's live stream.
My goodness.
Blame
What
Daniel
you What do you think about it, Drew? Were you a little surprised that DC didn't kind of go out of their way to protect their fans and set the record straight when they had the opportunity?
No, I wasn't. I mean, if you go to Daniel Cherry's, what his profile says, it's like, really looking at this, like if he were to apologize, I would have been shocked, going off what he's got listed. But I mean, what was shocking to me more than anything else is like when I heard about these, first thing that came to mind was that I knew Tom Taylor lived in Australia, and I knew the artist lived outside of the U.S. as well. I'm like, wait a minute, who's getting these death threats? And here in the United States, and he didn't really say who it was. If they were true, they didn't say who it was. Was it the DC offices? Like, period. Was it Jim Lee? Was it Daniel Cherry? Who was it?
This is definitely
You're
Somebody put out the news to TMZ. Somebody at DC had to have called TMZ and said, "Oh man, you need to make hay about this."
definitely felt like a bad marketing ploy. We got Cal Lyle here. Says, I finally went to a con for the first time in a year, and not one stall was selling Marvel or DC. Not one. It was Demon Slayer and My Hero Academia stuff.
Awesome.
Man, you need to go to Drew and the Comics Elite stall. You guys are selling DC and Marvel, right?
Still selling them very well, actually. Yeah.
So that's a little bit surprising.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Drew, what's
Cal.
hot right now, Drew?
What's that?
What's hot at Marvel DC at the cons?
At the con, I mean, any exclusives you may have specifically for that convention.
Gotcha.
So, for example, this is going back to that Terrificon in Connecticut. We had a Moon Knight #1 exclusive that Ken Lashley did, and that was stupid. It was an homage to his first appearance of Werewolf by Night, and every day before the show opened, every retailer was lined up at our booth to get copies of it. And I was looking to Sean, I'm like, we got to limit this, man. We got to cut this off. This is stupid.
We want to sell them ourselves.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to turn around and up price it so they can sell it themselves. But obviously, Callum Lyle is not in the United States; he's actually in Australia. So it's crazy. I'm actually going to do a conversation with a YouTuber from South America. We're going to talk about the state of the fandom outside of North America, and I think people are going to be really surprised at the way things are. We also got Eric Sullivan. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Wooly Jesse Smollett, Batman.
I think he meant holy Jussie Smollett Batman.
It's not Wooly
or Juicy Smollier.
Yeah,
Juicy Smollier.
Yeah,
my Chappelle fans in the house here.
No, look, I think what this comes down to is DC has a lot more faith that anybody isn't just completely apathetic and numb to their nonsense at this point. Most of the fans just we stopped caring. We're like, look, it's just going to happen, just whatever.
I don't know. Based on the reaction to the videos that I made on my channel, I imagine they did get a lot of feedback. I would be shocked if people didn't call up and say, I'm disappointed in this change or I don't approve of this change. And I certainly got a sense of that, within the comment section, my videos. I mean, you're obviously a little bit more in tune with the DC Comics fandom. Josh, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think people just didn't notice that or didn't even care the fact that they decided to go out there and say that Superman is bisexual, but forgot to, say, hey, by the way, it's Jon Kent, not Clark Kent, and kind of make it, specific to what they were actually doing?
I think people took notice. I think certain people cared. It's going to be split. I wouldn't say 50-50. I think you have plenty of people that didn't care for it, and you have plenty of people that are, championing it. But I do think that potentially the championing it side is smaller but louder. And look, I'm all for diversity, but I don't think DC is going about it the right way. And, we kind of mentioned it earlier, all the different things that they've done, all the different characters that they've either made bisexual or gay in the past 10 years. And how much have they actually done with it? Not much. So I think that's the telling piece of all this. And I think that's where, as fans who are opposing this, that's part of the reason we're opposing it. Like, all right, you're changing characters. And even if you're not completely changing a character, you're not really doing anything with it. You're just doing this ticker tape parade and patting yourself on the back. And then the people that do want to see these changes, they should actually be upset because they're not really getting the changes they wanted. They're just kind of getting the ticker tape parade and then everything's getting forgotten. So I do think
publicity.
Notice. I just don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like ticker tape parade.
We got
Everybody likes a parade.
Wolves D3D, obviously within Europe, saying DC despises the readers it has and wishes for a readership that doesn't exist. Learn your lesson and don't pay people that hate you. What do you think about that one, Chris? Do you think that truly DC despises their fans? I don't think they appreciate them.
No, I think you're right. I think that they are chasing, Aaron kind of alluded to this earlier, they are chasing this elusive, perhaps non-existent unicorn of fan that doesn't exist, that is going to clap like seals for all the diversity and inclusion, as if that is the elixir that's going to increase sales. And it's not going to. I mean, the fact is that there are very few new comic book readers, young comic book readers. It is a niche. industry. It's typically our age, the upper, a little older than college, lower middle-aged people who are buying the comics because there is a nostalgia to it. And not necessarily nostalgia. That would be like saying, well, we still celebrate Christmas. Does that make us nostalgic? No. But it's just sort of the materials that we enjoyed. It's a content we enjoyed. It's an art form we enjoy. It's a storytelling format we enjoy. And I made the point on another podcast, if this was really organic and we're making suddenly Tim Drake, who is Robin, who has had multiple female relationships, suddenly decides to be gay. If that were truly organic and DC were being fair-minded, then when are we going to see Batwoman decide that she's going to take her Jewish faith seriously and she's going to marry somebody and go straight? It's never going to happen, because the very people that are cheering for this inclusion and diversity would be apoplectic over something like that, because it goes against the way they want to go. This sudden increase in identity politics in comic books, it's fine to a degree because that's the real world, but for 6 out of 8 of the Justice League to now be bisexual or gay, that's out of balance with reality. And it just goes to show you, we mentioned Daniel Cherry first. Daniel Cherry is an activist. He is pro BLM. He is pro defund the police. He is pro the LGBTQ, and nothing wrong if you side with those people. I mean, that's your prerogative. You vote for who you want, vote for what you want. But I believe he's using these legacy characters to sort of bludgeon people and readers. And it's almost as if you don't like it, then these comics aren't for you. And that's kind of what I think DC readers are getting. It's interesting that Marvel has sort of toned it down a lot lately. They are really, I hate to say it, but it looks like CB Cebulski's really got things going on over there with a little more editorial control than they do at DC. DC seems to be rudderless.
Oh,
well, I wouldn't say they're rudderless. They're clearly moving in a direction.
Well,
I don't think they're.
I'm being charitable when I say that.
I know what you're saying.
I think a lot of. Go ahead. Never mind.
We do got a topic out here, Doc. And he's saying, I'm sure the source was an internal memo saying current output is a sales bomb, and it prompted a 911 call. That doesn't really
victim
line
points, increase sales. Victim. Buy from us.
It doesn't really line up with what we're seeing. The DC stuff is weird because Lunar does not report the actual sales. They're all guesstimates based on a very small sample size where they kind of propagate it out, which has definitely got some biases on who actually uses the app that they're using to make these guesstimates. But it sounds like the sales for comic books are actually doing pretty good, led by a lot of the ratio variants, a lot of the reboots and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And it does sound like this marketing ploy for Jon Kent, Superman, Son of Kal-El, at least initially, for issue number 5 has been effective, and the sales did go up. Will that be a long-term trend?
No,
I have some doubts.
Yeah.
What do you think, Drew?
They duped the retailers again. They duped the retailers again. The retailers keep falling for the same tricks, and that's why the industry doesn't change. And it's why I don't have a lot of pity for retailers anymore. It's like 2 out of 3 shops I order for, we've gotten completely out of comics, and the third shop is just down to pull lists. If you don't have a pull list, then those comics don't come in. There's nothing for the shelf. So, at some point, retailers, and I thought that they were going to rebel a few years ago at the retailer conference, where they just lost their minds and started, telling these companies what they actually thought and what they could actually sell. And they just backed off. It's a very abusive relationship between the publishers and the retailers. And the retailers, unfortunately, are the abused spouse in this situation, and they just keep going back.
I've said that to Sean repeatedly, multiple days. I'm like, Sean, you're like Tina Turner and Marvel's Ike right now, and it's like, but you keep going back. I don't get it.
I get
keep going back, Doc.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I get some kind of borderline Wile E. Coyote vibes out of this whole thing, except for if Wile E. Coyote kept catching the fucking Roadrunner. No matter what,
Charlie Brown and was it Lucy?
Yeah. You know what? Yeah,
football?
it's that.
Yeah.
It's Charlie Brown and Lucy with the damn football. That's exactly it. And you know what? Hey, cool. Look, it's your money. Set it on fire. I know as a collector, you know, I said this last week, and I'm, you know, I'm still kind of I still look at it this way. If you are a reader, if you are a vendor, if you are a flipper, don't get caught holding the bag on this one. This is because it's not gonna, you know, if you invested heavily into it, make sure you dump them books as soon as possible, because the bottom's gonna fall out of this. And it's going, but then they'll just move on to a different book, and they'll do the same thing. It's like a pump and dump.
Yeah, they're doing kind of more stunt marketing. They're having to do that to kind of get more interest. We do have Late Kramer here. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. These stories they're doing seem like they're to test out what works and what doesn't. The upcoming crisis is just a means to clean the slate if necessary. That's certainly on the horizon, Josh, and we know that there's some speculation that actually they're going to kill off Clark Kent while he's on Warworld, and Jon Kent will be the sole Superman in the DC universe, at least temporarily, until this next crisis, to see if it really does take, and people, you know, will consider him like the new successor to the mantle. How do you think that's going to work?
I mean, you know, go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say they've pretty much tried this a couple of times already. If you don't remember, they did the whole DCU thing a couple of years back, trying to get a different take, and nothing really worked. Nothing really stuck. They're going to try the same thing here. A few things will probably stick, but most of what they're throwing just, you know, looks and smells like shit.
What were you saying, Chris?
Well, I've heard the same thing, that they're going to do some sort of identity crisis on infinite Earths or whatever. But the people that they've attracted are not going to go for that. And I remember, I've loved comic books for a long time. I'm more into collected editions now than anything. I rarely pick up anything that's a brand new floppy unless it's somebody I want to support, or, you know, some sort of indie thing from a Blaze, or I've been picking up Dose Comics. But there's every now and then a story will come along that actually moves me. It actually happened with Afterlife with Archie, which for whatever reason never got finished. But most recently it was Rebirth, when Wally was brought back into the DC fold. And man, I remember that moment as I read that comic. It got dusty in the room for a second there. I was genuinely moved. I was excited about Rebirth, whereas I wasn't up until that point. And I was really excited about the possibilities. And then they just shit the bed. They made Wally a sociopathic murderer. And of course they've fixed that, I guess. Tom Taylor, please never write comics again. And that's
Tom King.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Both
Toms.
I'm in agreement with you, but for different reasons on Tom Taylor.
Toms don't make a right, and I think it doesn't bode well, because it almost feels like what you said. It's a pump and dump. It's like they're just willing to throw anything at the wall to see what sticks, but they won't stick with it, even if it works. I'm okay if all these changes they've made, stick with it. Let's do this for 5 years, guys, and let's see what happens. But the way that they've cannibalized the characters, the way that they abuse the retailers, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a good long-term plan for comics. And I'm not sure that that's the goal. It feels like it's going back to what can we do with IP, and how can we just wring whatever life is left out of this industry. It's kind of sad.
Well,
and you guys are talking about around 4 videos I got planned for next week. I don't want to go into all the details, but man, I'm going to be adding on top of all this stuff. We got Kenneth Dowling here, Doc. I'm in 100% agreement with panelist Chris. Well, thank God you're not agreeing with Doc anymore on activist writers pushing identity politics. That's why I always go back to Denny O'Neil is used as social issue in his work, but actually was able to make great stories.
Well, I was going to say real quick. I was going to say earlier is that when Denny was doing Green Lantern, Green Arrow with Neil, I mean, it was great at first. It was huge, but then it slowly died off. The trend wore off. It really got old pretty quick. I think they lasted 10 issues, maybe 15, before they just said, all right, we're going to go back to what things used to be, because this really isn't working out. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you really got to keep chasing the next social issue, and it's like, is this really going to last?
And then Probably it ages like fine milk.
Yeah. Well, Denny was a genius, and I think he had the right idea. He was much more restrained than what's going on these days at DC. And can you imagine how strong an editor you have to be to tell Denny O'Neil to back off a little bit? They don't have those editors anymore at DC.
No. Well, I think
You can
I think
do
with
these types of stories for an arc.
Yes.
You know, you can do a story, but you can't. It's not sustainable over the course of a long series or even a short series. It wears out. You know, it's going back to the well. It's the same trick over and over again, and it wears out quickly. So you need to balance it out with other stories. That's why X-Men has such longevity. Is there was social issues within it, but then you'd also go to space and have an adventure story. You were getting something different all the time, and if you didn't like a particular storyline, you just had to wait a few months because the next one was right around the corner. But when you have activists instead of writers, all you get is activism, and that's all you're going to get all the time. And that's why they keep having to reboot these books earlier and earlier and earlier, because they wear out their welcome so quickly.
Yep.
I would like to add one thing, Wes. We've got a writer telling him that has supposed that this new boyfriend for Superman, for Kal-El, or son of Kal-El, Jonathan, is actually a villain and is going to lead Jonathan.
John Astray. I've heard this theory. Yes.
Yeah, and that this is what's going to lead to what we've already seen in the future, where he's a fascist dictator and he's wrong. So, I mean, if Tom Taylor may be playing 5D chess, I don't know, but I don't.
I've read X-Men Red. I've read Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and that is not the Tom Taylor I know who writes comics within continuity. Let's
I
just put it
agree
that
with
way.
you, but it does taste like mustard and bigotry. So.
Absolutely.
it's a certain way. Like, once again, Tom Taylor left to his own devices. That's what you get. You
Yeah.
don't get Deceased Tom Taylor. You don't get Injustice Tom Taylor. You get X-Men Red Tom Taylor. You get whatever the bullshit he did years ago over at the end in the death knell of Wildstorm Tom Taylor.
Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Tom
You
Taylor.
get Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Tom Taylor. Look, they're not going to, they will kill Kal-El. They will kill Clark to force us to accept John as the only Superman, because as it stands right now, Superman fans have an escape hatch. It's still Clark. Clark's still alive. They have to take that away, because it will never be. I mean, look, it's the reason why Miles will never be accepted as long as Peter's around, and then he will get accepted even less when you reject him, when you force him into the replacement role.
It'd be crazy because they would actually have to cancel Action Comics to do it.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah,
And but you know, these characters, the photocopy Xerox half-baked dollar store versions of real characters that people care about will never be accepted. The creators think that there's some way that they can repeat Wally West, but without actually. But then when it comes to actually using Wally West,
work before you do it.
They think that they think that they can find a way to repeat Wally West while simultaneously shitting all over Wally West. They also think they can repeat Rhodey at Marvel, but they're not willing to put in the work. And Tony was still alive, but they're not going to do it. They think that they can do it. They're not talented enough to do it. None of them are Bob Layton.
All right, Doc, we gotta move on. We do have Lane Kramer saying,
us all.
Doc, get on the Doc train, Wes. Don't fight it, join it. I'm never gonna get on the Doc train. It's not my place on this channel. We are naturally adversarial when it comes to this stuff. We've also got Eric Canetti, wonderful comic book artist, just finished up a very successful crowdfunding campaign for Arc Athena. Book 2 will be coming out before you actually can imagine it, and I imagine the fulfillment of the campaign will be ongoing very soon. So thank you very much to Eric Canetti for joining us and supporting the channel. Hello all, great panel. I'd like for us to talk about the idea that activist writers aren't the end problem and are often blamed too much. I do agree with you there. I lay the responsibility on editors and leadership. I 100% agree with you. Tom Taylor is not allowed to write a comic book and have it published without editorial oversight and approval. And certainly I do think a lot of the direction of DC Comics is coming down from leadership. What do you think about that with Drew?
No, it's absolutely true. And it's like, I really wish I want to be a fly on the wall, there for these meetings where it's like, hey, this one isn't crazy or wild enough, you know, and this editor telling the writer, hey, make it even crazier, make it even more inclusive for everyone else, you know, make it more shocking. It's like, really? That doesn't go for the story. We don't care. Make it shocking. It's like, I really wish we could hear this, like how normal a story actually is, and then the editor comes in and says, no, we're gonna make this even wilder or crazier. Like, that's what I want to know, like how much pull the editors actually have.
They need to have a union with a live stream during some of these pitch sessions about where they're going to go.
Well, look, I mean,
on that story.
Here's the thing: when it comes to the editors, Eric has a perfect point. The problem is any editor with any skill, any understanding of the English language to edit, an idea of how stories should be structured, they're all gone. They are. I mean, you know, they're just not in the industry anymore, or they're doing freelance, like, you know, people like Aaron. I mean, Sean Murphy talked about this, a year ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago, got fucking raked over the coals for it.
Yep.
Because it was a recognition that none of the people that are still there had that skill.
Well, we just talked about it with Chuck Dixon on the channel yesterday with the interview where he kind of goes into the importance of editorial oversight and what Denny O'Neil was able to do for him. And he was kind of offered a position or opportunity to be the Batman group editor, follow him up, and he ended up turning it down. But, you know, he says that he could see that there's a lot of editorial issues in leadership, and I definitely agree with that.
Well, one issue he said was like it was the lack of pay. He said it had to take a pay decrease to be an editor. So, like, big issue is probably, you know, the money.
Yeah, Tomasi's even talked about that, like the editorial role taking a decrease in pay.
You think about the comic book companies themselves. We complain a lot about what they do story-wise, publicity-wise, but they do have certain restrictions in what they can do. You know, they're not going to introduce new characters. It always has to be a derivative of a character. So that's why you get Iron Maiden or whatever Riri Williams was. That's why you get Miles Morales, another version of Spider-Man. That's why you get the same non-binary Flash at DC. So it's like they have those restrictions. Then they have the restrictions of the trademark of what Superman's slogan is going to be. And then you have just the financial restrictions of how much they can actually spend. At the end of the day, there's such a thin profit margin, and anybody that's done it themselves and distributed their own comic book knows this. There's hardly any money to be made in this medium, and it's probably more criticized than films. I bet at least as criticized as the film industry is the comic book industry these days. So there are a lot of restrictions, but has it always been that bad? I don't know. I'm sure it's getting worse, but it could be done better, I think. And I don't know that they're willing to lean into that because they like that quick juice of Whoopi Goldberg praising whatever you've done in the latest Green Lantern comic or something. I don't know.
That doesn't put butts, that doesn't put butts in the seats. It doesn't bring people into the store. The reason I think that comic criticism is heavier than film criticism is because with film, it's a lot of fire and forget. You have a lot of casuals that come in, watch a movie, they stuff popcorn in their face, and then, they're done. They're out. With comics, you've got a dedicated fan base that's been there for a long time that actually cares not only about the actual book that you're giving them, the actual piece of entertainment that month, and I use entertainment lightly to describe the current market, but you have people who are really dedicated to this and who understand the characters and who aren't just coming in on a casual basis. The barrier to entry with price and variant cover schemes and trying to figure out the numbering of these books now is high for anyone except somebody who's completely dedicated. So you're going to get higher criticism because it's a base that cares more. But what they're proving really good at doing is making people not care and letting apathy set in. And that's why I'm not surprised that this whole death threat thing was a hoax, because people don't care enough anymore. They're not passionate enough about these characters, these books, these creators, these IPs to get worked up about it. They just shrug their shoulders and they move on.
I do want to say thank you to Cal Mile, who says the Ike and Tina thing might not be appropriate. Let's bring it more modern. It's Rihanna and Chris Brown as far as the relationship between the comic book retailers and the publishers. Pretty good with that. We've also got Kenneth Dowling. What's up? What was that?
All right.
Okay.
Oh, you there? All right. We lost you for a second. I got nervous. I was
bad.
like, I thought my internet was cutting out, so I started talking and no one responded. So I was like, oh crap.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Fell out there. We got Kenneth Alex saying, speaking of Anil, Wes, I absolutely loved your interview with Chuck Dixon. That was so much fun. The man is a master of his craft and a great personality. Thank you for that, Wes. Well, thank you very much. I thought it went really well. It's probably the biggest interview I've had on the channel so far. I thought it went really well. It looks like people are really enjoying it. It sounds like Chuck enjoyed the experience. He said he's going to come back, and there's a very good chance this month Chuck Dixon will be joining us live on the Comics Aficionados one Saturday.
Oh, that'd be dope.
Wow.
We've just got to finish out the details, and we should have that all worked out. And if you want to continue to support the channel, we can have great creators like Chuck Dixon come back here and talk about Batman and whatnot. Why don't you give us a thumbs up and let everyone know we're having a good time now? I think we've got, 53 right now? We've almost got 200
60.
people. Okay, we're up to 60. We've got almost 200 people in the live stream. So, if everyone gives us a thumbs up, we'll be over 100 in no time. We really appreciate that kind of support. And definitely loved having Chuck Dixon. That was a great experience and much nicer man than you can possibly believe behind the scenes as well.
Chuck's great.
I do want to just touch on two things real quick that were kind of mentioned earlier. One, just editorial interference. Like, we know it happens a lot. Like, even if you're top tier, quote unquote, like Tom King was viewed as being when he was writing Batman, we know editorial came through and just changed up his story. I also had Fabian reach out when he had written a few issues of Nightwing that he had his script just completely changed by editorial. Lines are written in, lines were taken out. That he didn't even know about it until it was published, which sucks because his name's on there as the writer, and then it was a crap script. But there are multiple things that I called out in a review, and he was blatant enough and bold enough to come in and say, I did not write these. This was not me, just kind of letting it out there. And I apologize to him and cleared it up in the later review, but there's definitely heavy editorial interference. But I think part of the problem we're seeing too is like, you've got these activist writers, you've got these activist editors. So they're all like pushing for the same thing. That's why you're not
There's
getting
no sanity check where we're like,
there's
okay,
no
we might
sanity
go
checks.
too far, or let's balance this out a little bit. Maybe it's time to take a week off.
Yeah.
I feel like they all need to do a conference call where they actually speak the script out loud. And then when they realize how fucking never mind that they
how special it is.
How special it is. They don't print it.
Yeah, I think that's look. I will say, as someone who's written scripts, I will say that is a give and take, because there are times you write something and you have people read it and you're like, holy shit, this is awful. And then you get that one person that comes in and they like get it and they read it and you're like, holy shit, this is great. I do want to talk. We talked about just the quality of writing, and this is something that I try to focus on when I do review books. And I know it's something that a lot of people that are just general readers that aren't into language or story structure or even sentence structure, they don't get. But we have lost. Yeah, there's a craft. There's actually a craft to writing. It's not just telling a story, but how you structure your sentences, how you structure your story matters. And even if people can't articulate it, when they read a book that is written well, they feel like it is a good book. And then if you get something that's just lazy or kind of like juvenile, which is, I feel like, what we get these days, you can tell. So I think that's what we're seeing. We have a lot of quote unquote children writing books right now, and they just can't speak to what they want to speak to properly or well, and that makes it suffer. And then they're also not giving a balance to the book. It's just very one-sided. There's no nuance. So those are things that come into play here. And it's why we don't enjoy our product as much as we would like to be enjoying them at the moment.
Yeah. And I told Wes last week or so, like, a lot of the dialogue, this is not stuff you would say out loud ever to anyone.
Yep.
A lot of the dialogue, and like, that's a part of the problem too. A lot of them it's Twitter speak. Like, that's not how people talk in real life.
Well, yeah, I will say, as much as we feel that way, I as someone who has to hire and work with 16-year-olds, Twitter speak is very much how they speak. I literally have employees that will say LOL in response. Like, they'll verbally say LOL.
I've got some nieces that do that.
This is why you should be still allowed to punch your employees.
Don't punch your nieces. That's weird.
Oh man.
Yeah. Only nephews.
But yeah,
You
it's,
got Eric?
I heard
Go
somebody
ahead.
say BTW one time, and I said, "Do you realize that you just used more syllables to say BTW than by the way? It would have been shorter just to say by the way." It's ridiculous.
We got Eric Canetti once again supporting the channel. There needs to be clear expectations across the board, talent, staff, etc., based on KPI of whether or not some of these people get to continue their employment, like a real business, not a clubhouse. Doc and I talk about this in a video tomorrow. It's accountability issue. There is definitely a lack of accountability as far as the product. Are you serving the characters the best? Is this the story that's going to continue on and move things forward the best, or is the storyline really serving the purpose of other agendas in there? And it definitely feels like it's not really run like a real business.
Well, the problem with key performance indicators is if you do some outrageous storyline that you can get a bunch of press releases out for, that doesn't necessarily mean it was a good story that the fandom liked, but the retailers get jazzed enough to buy a bunch of them, like Son of Kal-El #5, right?
well, I mean, it's not even #5. If you'll remember, like 3 weeks ago, I talked
I had
about
to go
how.
reprint the other 4 issues.
Oh,
Well, yeah, my local comic shop, like they had sold through #1. I think they had 1 issue left. And then their #2, they had like 9 issues just sitting there. Same with #3. And then this news came out. And then it's like suddenly they're all getting scooped up, even especially issue #2, because that was the first appearance of Jay. So a lot of these sales are not story driven. They're just that speculator market.
They're
It's people
flippers.
scooping it. Yeah.
Well, it is
100%.
speculation. That's really the lifeblood of the industry these days. But if you go back and look at the reviews for those early issues, the first three or four even, they were poor. Most fans were not enjoying the story as it was going. The only thing that gave it any energy is the bisexual Superman storyline. That's it.
It was a gimmick to temporarily bump sales, clear out the inventory of existing books, maybe get some sales on reprints, and then watch it go back to being a floundering book by the time it hits issue 10.
And it makes sense why DC would let this information just permeate out there that, basically says your fans, your customers are bigots. They're making death threats because it provides more spotlight on this comic book. Perhaps we'll get them more sales, but really it's at the expense of the relationship with their fans. So I think in the end, it's really counterproductive, Aaron.
No, it absolutely is. It's really unfortunate. It's short-sighted thinking, which is all that the industry has right now. It's just short-term sales, and I think this is always the problem that you were going to run into when these companies were acquired by these larger corporations. Is because it just becomes like when a company goes public. You have to continually show profit to your shareholders. So you have to continually show profit to your parent company. And because of that, there's no long-term planning. There's no long-term ideas. Everything is just a short grift to get those dollars in. But the problem is that short-term thinking leads to lower and lower returns until you hit a point now where nobody cares. I think that this Superman stunt, and it is a stunt, is going to be the kind of the death knell of this kind of marketing. I think this is the last gasp of it. And
Wow.
I think though I'm going to have to do it for every character now, just to be able to get an article that goes out beyond the comic book sphere. So I think they're going to have to do it more and more, Aaron.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that they're just going to see less and less return until it just becomes a non-issue, even to normies who don't pay attention to these.
Where are you going? That's above Superman. The only one above there is Batman.
Yeah.
Well, look, they're gonna kill all the brand. I mean, they've already killed all the uniqueness of all these characters. Now they've killed the specialness of certain events on them. They have no idea what to do storyline with them because so much of it's already been done, and they're not really. Most of the creators in this industry aren't creative enough to think of something unique and new to do. So the only thing left is, that one last gasp at relevancy. And once the novelty wears off, that character's dead. You might as well just put him in a grave. You could still maybe get a couple of thousand people that'll buy from time to time, monthly, but even that's going to start fading. And what was the normal of 100,000 became the normal of 60,000, became the normal of 40,000, became it's going to be down to 5,000. You're going to be seeing Superman books selling 5,000 copies, and everybody's going to wonder why.
Anytime soon.
No, but that's the inevitable end result.
Well, yeah, because if the industry keeps contracting, we'll eventually get there. But that's not happening around the corner. We do have Cal Weil saying Robert E. Howard did that. I'm not sure when you put this out there. Obviously, Robert E. Howard, the man behind Conan the Barbarian, one of the greatest writers of all time. I think Conan might be the greatest character ever. So,
amen.
I imagine he did do that. I'm sorry, I don't know what the context is anymore, Cal Weil. We got Kenneth Dowling also supporting the channel. Chris mentioned defund the police. I strongly believe that's why Tynan took away Bruce Wayne's money. Around the time that movement started, that's when he wrote that story. Batman is seen as a top cop. There's also always that, I don't know, that it's almost like a meme, but with Batman, he's this billionaire that enjoys going out and beating up poor people. And I think a lot of comic writers can't take that kind of, I don't know, criticism hanging over their head when they go onto a character like that.
Yeah, Tynan comes across as a softie. I don't think he could handle that. So,
you think he's a softie?
I miss Dan DiDio. I never thought I'd say that, but I'm starting to miss Dan
DiDio. I've said it a few times. Don't worry.
I'm in the same boat.
Oh man! At least there was some structure there, And I get people don't like being told no, but Jesus, if you're a creator, it's the art of the business. You're going to get told no 80 or 90% of the time. You just got to suck it up and deal with it.
That's right. You can't always get what you want. Come on.
No. I mean, Tynan in particular, he's leaned somewhat heavily into a lot of political things going on with his books. And he's another person that I constantly say he's not a good writer. And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, just the craft of writing, the structure, your syntax, your diction. And everyone gives me shit when I say Mariko Tamaki is a better writer, but this is what I'm referring to. Mariko Tamaki is a better writer.
Jeff's going to give us a really bad comment on that one, but I completely agree with you, man. Every fucking time that dude
coming in the comments.
I'm reading everything from DC right now, and Josh is 100% right now. And if you read Detective compared to Batman, it's she's flipping.
She's running circles around him.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And what's crazy is she's super restrained in what she can do right now. She's having to just toe the line with this little mini story, but still, Tynan. He's not the person to be doing this. You want quality if you're going to do this, you want quality writers to come in and do it. And if you're going to do defund the police, fine, but do both sides of it. Why do you want to defund the police? If you're going to write
Batman, you can't be ashamed of the character going in.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We thought we hated Batman when Tom King had him all depressed and pouty, and now we just have an incapable Batman that just send him to the nursing home at this point.
Well, not just that. James, do you want to write about Ghostmaker, or do you want to write about Batman, or you want to write about Miracle Molly or Harley? Do you want to write about everyone else but
Magic
Batman?
Molly? This is a secret ingredient to this Batman. My goodness. We've got Antonio Rosillo. Is DC making a new, different Superman because in 12 years, Clark Kent Superman is public domain and anyone will be able to use the character? First of all, I don't believe in 12 years anyone will be able to use Superman. No. They will certainly still own the IP they bought the story and all the art originally from the creators, so it's a little bit different than other characters. But they would still own the Superman uniform, the Superman symbol, the name Superman. And all that stuff. It's not like you can just go out there and Jon Kent's a derivative character anyway. It gets all fuzzy. That stuff is never ever going to get out into public domain. There's way too much money, way too many lobbyists, and it's not from DC Comics. It's from fucking Disney and Warner Media and all these enormous corporations that it behooves them for this stuff to never come out there.
Yeah, they don't.
I do not believe that's why it's happening.
No.
That's right. You just wait until every time Mickey's about to become public domain and somebody else could sell something with a Mickey head on it. That's when you know that it's about to get extended again for another 20 years or 30 years. And, I'm sorry I'm cynical on this, but that's just the way it works.
Dump a bunch of money in the politicians' laps, and you'll get what you want. That's that's our system.
They keep pushing the goalposts back anytime you get close to scoring on this one. It's just the way it's always.
You know, we're in trouble if Mickey and Donald ever admit they have a relationship going on. Then Disney is saying, "Okay, we're about to lose the mouse." So
Maybe.
I wouldn't put it beyond them to do that at this point. You know, a couple years from now, I'm like, that's not outside of the possibility right now.
Shame, but you're right.
You know what just kind of dawned on me
Oh my goodness! Doc.
years
We got
ago.
time for a rant.
No, I was just going to say years ago, Joe Quesada, whenever he was still in charge, was asked whether or not the Marvel universe and the Marvel Ultimate Universe would ever interact. And his response was, when we do that, it's an admission that we are entirely out of ideas. And I think whenever they did do that, and if we're looking back since, we can finally understand, yeah, they just ran entirely out of ideas.
Well, yeah, we would talk about that on the channel, Doc. I can't believe that's an epiphany right now. This has been going on for a
Ben
while.
O'Reilly is coming out gay next for Marvel. That's your
Oh,
Spider-Man.
cool.
Yeah, that's
All
happening.
right.
You heard
Wow,
it here first.
that would be weird because his entire motivation for this Beyond Corporation is that they freed his girlfriend.
That's right. Yeah, just
So
watch.
that would really work out. We got Eric Canetti that says the mainstream sensationalizing identity is like the 2020s version of putting a holofoil or a particular cover on their comics. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
we're
that's
getting
the
a
problem.
We're getting a hollow foil on X-Men Legends #9, damn it. And I'm looking forward to that one.
Me too.
We got to finish this thing up. I do want to send it over to Josh. You know, obviously, you are a member of a proud member of the LGBTQ community, and that he's right. It's a marketing ploy. That's one of the reasons that it doesn't feel like it's a natural progression of the characters. You can clearly see that it's being packaged up and put out there as a reason for people to come in and buy comics one day.
Yeah, and again, this goes. But I was trying so hard not to bring up that I was gay in this stream because I've done it for like every week so far. I think that's a big issue. That's my issue with what they did with Tim and how they're doing it with John. Is nothing about this feels authentic. And then the characters you do have that were established as being authentic and felt authentic, your Kate Kane's, your Midnighter, your Apollo, they've dumbed them down to just like watery versions. Like you get to the stereotypes. I don't know if you've been reading Grant Morrison's Authority, but you pretty much have Apollo and Midnighter just bickering about who's cheating on who. I'm like, man, okay, well, thanks for giving us this West Hollywood drama.
Why do you think that is, Josh? I mean, why do you think that even Sina Grace wrote in very stereotypical caricatures of what Hollywood thinks is the gay people act, right? So why do you think that they just can't get it right?
I think even with Sina Grace, I think there were some issues behind the scenes where he didn't have as much control as he wanted to. From what I understand in conversations I've had with people that have worked with him and know him.
I've had this same conversations.
I think it's, I don't know. I think this is, again, where editorial steps in and you've got people that, I think it's twofold. I think you've got people stepping in that aren't within these communities telling you you're going to do what these communities should be or are, and they don't know. And then I think you have people like, I know plenty of gay people that their whole life, all they care about is gay activism. Like that's what they're about. And right now that's all they're pushing. There's no balance. I've often said on the show, I don't lead by saying I'm a gay man. I lead by saying I'm a man who happens to be gay because it's just a small factor of who I am as a person. There are multiple other things that define me. And I would like to see that breadth in these characters. And if we saw that, I think we'd see less issues. But all we're getting is, oh, look, they're gay. To the point that we even had creators going, oh, great, this character is finally interesting now. Like,
we've got
that's
old
not
school
interesting.
comics.
No.
All right, guys, we got to wrap this one up. We got 5 more topics. We got old school comics saying JT Ford, James Tynan IV couldn't carry Bill Mantlo's typewriter or his jockstrap. Boom. We got Wolfstein 3D, editors and creators with too little talent experience working for little money, creating a bad product that doesn't sell. A race to the bottom. Yes.
Yeah.
You've made the secret sauce there. You figured out how they made their Big Mac. And we got Kenneth Dowling. I effing hate it when people say Batman beats up poor people. Batman fights criminals of all kinds. He's not against poverty, but criminality. Absolutely. He will rail against anyone that's a criminal, whether at the top or the bottom. He is equal opportunity about beating the crap out of criminals. If you break the law, you're gonna eat it from Batman. That's kind of a
there's
character.
plenty of Batman stories where he's taking down, corrupt CEOs and the like.
Rich
It's just not
yeah.
it's not as visually interesting as him, beating up
No.
a gang of people in an alley. So, you have that balance.
Yeah, that gang of people could be rich. They could just be,
All those
See
rich
what's going on.
roving gangs in Wes's neighborhood. With
You
their
want to
monocles
tell me
and their
those
top
mob
hats.
members?
have you ever been to Connecticut? There's rich gang members.
That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
Monopoly boys.
All those people in the mob. Have you seen mob
It's the
homes?
Van
Like,
Buren
they're
boys,
massive. Like,
They
Yeah, I
got Ryan Wilson. I've been reading comics for 2 years, buying 5 to 10 comics a week, and already done with new Marvel and DC. Tired of drama, predictable stories, politics. I'm sticking to indies and older comics.
Do it.
That's where
agreed.
it's at. The older comics.
And
it's just-
that's part
Go
of the
support
problem, too,
Arcathina
predictable.
if you haven't already. Eric Kennedy
Yes.
keeps popping into the chat. Is doing some great work on that crowdfunding
Yeah.
book.
What is the name of his book? What's the name of Eric's book?
Arc
Athena.
Athena.
Is he
So
crowdfunding
his crowdfunder on Indiegogo is complete. It will be available on Iconic Comics once the fulfillment is complete for the crowdfunder. Then you'll be able to buy it directly from the website.
Beautiful.
And then he's already got the first 5 issues completely illustrated. So when the second one comes up, you'll obviously be able to buy the first book, like as a package on that one. as well.
So Eric, when you crowdfund it again, send me an email to contact@bleedingfool.com so we can signal boost that. We do that every week for crowdfund indie comics. I think that's really sort of what DC and Marvel have done has given rise to independent creators putting out the kind of stories that entertain them and they find their audience. It's really kind of helped the indie industry, I think.
They certainly lit a fire under independent creators and just comic book fans to go find an alternative. And I don't think that's probably the best business strategy. So we're going to kind of wrap this one up. We've got an hour into it. We're going to do a little bit of a little who wins battle here. We're going to talk about Bane and Kingpin. Now, a lot of people are going to say, but Bane is on Venom. Clearly, he'd beat Kingpin's ass. Listen, Kingpin was able to subdue and hold down Spider-Man. Spider-Man is faster and stronger than Bane anyway. I don't think it's so clear-cut, Drew. Who wins, Bane or Kingpin?
Well, in my opinion, Bane's taken over Gotham twice at this point, so I'm going to go with Bane. And he's broken the bat, so multiple times, and he broke Alfred's neck. He killed Alfred. I think, I'm going to take Bane in this.
Get him, Josh.
I mean, I'm not gonna. I was shaking my head at the whole breaking Alfred's neck thing.
I hate it too. I hate it too. It's like,
dude, it's the worst. Freaking DC editorial right there.
Yep.
The one thing I kept thinking when I was coming into this is, are they in a cage match and they're just going blow for blow, or are they free to have their own devices and they're out in the public and doing their stuff? And I think that's what makes this a little more interesting, because Kingpin has so much reach into so many different people and organizations and groups that he can come at you in multiple different ways to kind of tear you down. And Bane's a tactician like that as well, but his is more still physical, that he's going to have people go after your people or get people to go after you to wear you down. I don't know. It's a close call. I'm kind of interested to see what everyone else thinks and says, but
it's really like, is it to see like who is going to take over a city quicker to the first, or is it going to be like an actual fight between the both of them? It's like, because even their ways of taking over the city, Bane's just going to come in and try to just like dominate control, and Kingpin's going to have this underworkings, and you don't realize he's taken over until he's taken over.
See, Kingpin is Bane is going to have a lot of lackeys. He's going to have that whole like kind of, but all of them are like generic thug A. Yeah. Whereas Kingpin gets those generic thug A, but he also hires Bullseye and all the supervillains to go after Bane too.
Hey, Throg and Zombie are not mindless, lackeys. Those were valuable lackeys Bane had.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I love your sarcasm. That's great.
Okay,
but
first of all, nothing Tom King wrote counts. So
agreed.
We have to take that away from Bane right away.
Thank God.
As far as I'm concerned. As far as Kingpin goes, can they both take over a city using their tactical skills and their planning? Yes, absolutely. But Kingpin's going to be able to hold it longer. Seems like Bane always gets tripped up and moves too fast too quickly. And when
Yeah,
it
I was
comes
about to
down
say
to just a physical confrontation, Bane's got the venom, but Kingpin has also defeated Red Skull when Red Skull was in a cloned Captain America body with the super soldier serum. So
he's
in
also
all
held
things-
back Spider-Man. He's also held back Spidey, and he knows martial arts. I mean, it might be a good tussle.
I think
a good physical confrontation, definitely. But I think ultimately Kingpin wins this scenario.
Yeah, he's more brilliant.
Yeah, I think Kingpin and Bane are relatively evenly matched physically, but all Kingpin has to do is rip out the venom pumps. Like seriously, cut off the supply and then hold out for another couple minutes while it runs out.
That could actually be a line of dialogue from Kingpin. Just cut off the supply.
Shut off.
Yeah.
That'd be a great.
Bane's really got to go. He's really got to go under the skin with those venom tubes. That stuff being out and exposed. That's just way too easy for writers to just sever the venom tube and then he's defeated.
Exactly.
Crossover, little Marvel DC where actual symbiote venom takes over Bane. I mean, I think he'd be unstoppable then.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean,
have I missed that? Has there been a crossover I didn't know about?
No,
Not
not in a world where anybody gave a shit about symbiotes yet. Because the last time, seriously, nobody really gave a shit about symbiotes in general. They liked Venom, they liked Carnage. Everything else was superfluous until what's his name? Donny Cates took over Venom. Everyone else was like, no, stop with the symbiotes, because we all remembered that like terrible Planet of the Symbiotes crossover in all the Spider-Man books, like right after the Clone Saga was over, and we're like, oh no, don't no, and then everybody stayed away from any other symbiotes pretty much forever until Donny Cates. So yeah, and the last time that Marvel and DC did any sort of crossover would have been well before anybody gave a shit about symbiotes.
Yeah, Lobo the
I
Dove.
can't remember. I couldn't tell you anything about any of the other symbiotes except for their names and the color of their costume. I couldn't tell you any personality traits that they have. That's
because none of them have any.
No. They are their names.
Yeah.
Scream or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Scream, Riot,
Toxin.
I love timeout. I got to pause it. I love how confused Wes looks right now because he left and came back and is like, why the fuck are they talking about symbiotes?
Yeah,
this is
why
supposed
are
to
we
be
talking-
Bane and Kingpin.
Kingpin. We got another big topic to cover.
There was a natural progression there. You just missed it.
All right.
I will say, I think a 6-issue miniseries of this could be a lot of fun, where you have Bane and Kingpin kind of going against each
Bane
other.
trying
and,
to take over New York and Kingpin.
Sure, but Bane's like going after all of Kingpin's like assassins, and then Kingpin's just kind of doing this underground thing to take out Bane. Like that would be a fun approach. It's two ambitious people trying to do the same thing from different perspectives.
Ooh, and
If you guys get a chance, and you haven't,
socialism type thing too for the politics that everybody wants to put in there.
if anybody wants to read a story kind of like this, you can check out Mark Gruenwald's run. He did a storyline called Streets of Poison that I referenced earlier, where the Red Skull comes in and tries to take over the drug trade in New York City. And he and Kingpin they actually have a big confrontation. You get Bullseye versus Crossbones. You get Cap versus Daredevil. It's a lot of fun.
That's in Epic collection form. I think you can get those on Amazon. Yeah, that's actually.
Or your local
Aaron.
comic shop, perhaps.
Yeah,
Aaron, who did you back
get
as
some
far
back
as Bane versus Kingpin?
It was
Who do you
Bane.
think wins?
Well, Josh brought up an interesting conversation. In this fight, is it going to be an actual physical fight, or is it going to be a fight to see whoever takes over a city first and maintains it? And like, this is I think
This is Capcom versus Marvel. This is one-on-one with your powers. This is Kingpin, who's been able to get his paws on Spider-Man and put him down for the count.
Okay, I'm going with Bane still.
Come on, it's gotta be
Well, it depends
Kingpin.
who's writing. Is it Tom King, so are the characters depressed? Is it Tom Taylor, so the characters are just arguing about climate change? Who's our hack writer on this?
Now, if Mike Barron's writing it, it's martial arts, and Kingpin wins. There's hands down. He knows the moves.
Yes, Kingpin has a lot of martial arts. We got Kenneth Dowling says both are tacticians, both have lackeys, both are great fighters. Bane's advantage is Venom. Taken away, it's pretty even. I give it to Bane because he's more brutal, but Kingpin has a chance. I'm saying he's got a chance.
I mean,
All right,
read that.
Doc.
Yeah, read the what is it that Birth of the Demon or whatnot, Birth of Vengeance, whatever. When his origin story, that is a great origin story Chuck and Graham did. You see just how much pain he went through his whole life.
Yeah.
All right, Doc. I want to put you in the finger cuffs. You know what I'm saying, buddy? Wolverine versus Midnighter. Who wins?
Ooh.
Is Doc
Midnighter.
here? He
Wolverine.
left. Are you kidding, Doc? I just tried to put you in the finger cuffs and you're not even here? My goodness.
You know, sometimes Wes, you gotta poop.
My goodness.
The advantage
Whatever.
of never turning your camera on.
Doc's stuck getting finger cuffed. All right, Aaron. Who wins? Midnighter or Wolverine?
Wolverine. I like Midnighter
What?
as a character, but Wolverine's just got, you know, he's got unbreakable bones. He's got the he's got the claws. He's got the healing factor. If it's a physical confrontation, Wolverine wins. If it's if we're going a more Batman route where Midnighter has time to prepare, I think that there's a lot of ways that Midnighter could pull it out, but you know, with some good planning and you know, maybe hitting him from a distance. But you know, it's always going to come down to fighting it out in the street, and I think Wolverine's got a clear advantage.
Listen, I'm going to be honest with you, Josh. I think people really sell Batman short as if he doesn't think on his feet. There are plenty of times when he's surprised and you see his thought process as he figures out his adversary and then ends up whooping their ass within 3 or 4 pages.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
or
beat
gets
all
saved
the
by
time.
Harley Quinn. Or Harley
Yeah.
Quinn comes in and saves his life.
Okay, I am back.
Ghostmaker, Clown Hunter. Go
I'm
ahead,
back
Doc.
now, and the answer is the Midnighter. And the primary reason is because he still has a fight computer built into his head. So Wolverine doesn't matter how much. I mean, he has a healing factor. He also is significantly faster than Wolverine. He's equally and better trained as a fighter, and he's got carbon fiber muscles. So good fucking luck.
Plus, Wolverine's got that big disadvantage. If you throw him in water, he sinks.
Yes, you could drown him.
He'll
could
slowly
drown-
walk out.
Yeah.
All it takes
He's
is
too
a
heavy.
glancing blow-
All
it takes
I was
a
gonna say
glancing
is
blow from Wolverine's claws to disembowel you, and your carbon fiber muscles don't mean anything against that.
Yeah, yes, but he can also still keep going. I mean, he's got multiple hearts. He's got I think he has 3 hearts. He has a fight computer. He just beat the ever loving shit out of Wolverine. He just keep knocking him
And he was
unconscious.
decapitated.
No, he literally he'd be able to just completely outsmart him the entire time. Every time Wolverine would adjust to the Midnighter's fighting style, the Midnighter would have adjusted already twice. He's 3 steps ahead of Wolverine the entire time. And I fucking love Wolverine. He's my favorite character. But
How many
Midnighter
adjustments can you make to a glancing blow taking your armor leg off? That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think the way I see this playing out is Midnighter's going to get in there. He's already going to have like Wolverine figured out because he is 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead, and he's going to toy with him for like 2 minutes just to piss him off. And he might get stabbed in the process, but he's going to toy with him for like 2 minutes to piss him off, and then get a Wolverine in his like berserk mode where he just like goes for him, and he's going to use one of his portals and like open the door, and then Wolverine's just going to go out into space and be like dumbass, and then go about his day. Like,
I mean, he could just door him in half.
Yeah,
he just
that
door and then close it while Wolverine's lunging at him.
Or you just have your husband throw him into the sun.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's also an option too. I mean, his husband can literally just pick up Wolverine and throw him.
No, there's no tag teaming.
If it's Marvel versus Capcom,
then he doors him into the sun. It can go anywhere. That's the whole point of ship. It can, like the carrier it exists at all places, but it's tethered. It's anchored to Earth. It exists in all realities and simultaneously. And everywhere simultaneously.
I feel terrible. I thought I was putting Doc in a terrible position where he wasn't going to be able to pick the winner. And clearly he's thought this out. He knows it's Midnighter. We got Kenneth Dowling here, who also says, don't forget, Bane survived an attack from Batman with Superman's powers. Superman. He's taking anything Kingpin will throw at him. I don't know, man. All you have to do is rip his little cords out. He's got no venom.
Yeah,
Kingpin's got it. He's way faster than you give him credit for.
I think whenever we do these matchup things, we have to look at what stories and what writers we accept.
Yes, thank you.
I mean,
is it
because
canon?
otherwise you could always have that like, well, Squirrel Girl
Frank
beat
Miller's
Thanos.
Kingpin. Well, his Kingpin isn't as strong as some others, right?
Yeah.
Let's just go to Wizard Magazine. Let's find the Wizard Magazine where this battle was in. And we'll
Yes.
see who the winner was.
I've got it right over here.
Sometime in 1994.
Squirrel Girl versus Thanos next. Let's who called it? Josh.
Oh my
is.
goodness.
Squirrel Girl's-
We got infamy or
I'll just
death,
bust
man.
out.
We were
I'll bust out my action figures. We'll settle this.
That's it.
We got infamy or death in the chats, and he's gonna be so mad when he replays this and he hears us talking about crap about James Tynan versus Marigo Tamaki again. He can't stand it. But I shaved, buddy, so you should be happy about that. He's been wanting me to shave for a while. I don't know why. So dang it. Did Aaron just leave? He wants to talk about this next topic more than anybody. Let's get out of the fake fights and get into this Image Comics worker union thing that's been going on. All right, we got Aaron coming back in here. We have 9 staff members of Image Comics who have nothing to do with any of the creative, the comic books, or anything. They want the final say on what comic books Image are able to produce. They even have essentially veto power over Todd McFarlane, Robert Kirkman, and other people on who they can have as their interior artists, their cover artists, what stories they can actually produce and publish in Image Comics. Aaron, you specifically messaged me and said you wanted to talk about this. What are your thoughts on this Image Comics, comic book worker union situation?
I think that you definitely want the people who replace the paper in the paper tray of the printer making your creative decisions as to who can be hired and who can't. I think that's a really super great idea. This is laughable. It's absolutely laughable. The idea that a bunch of office staff should be able to dictate what the product is, and let's be honest, that is really what they want here. Everything else is just window dressing around it.
Yep.
All of the other things that they're asking for are fairly reasonable. Like monthly meetings, a certain amount of transparency with the business plan. That's all well and good. But really, what it ultimately came down to was that final point, that they want veto power so that they can continue to gatekeep and push people out of the industry. And that's completely laughable. Every single one of you in the Image office that's asking to be part of this union, you are easily replaceable. You are not skilled labor. You're not electricians. You're not plumbers. You're easily replaceable. And I can tell you right now, Image could do, if this is the sort of thing that you're asking for, Image could do a lot better and should. If I was in charge of Image, every one of these employees I'd be looking to replace right now.
Doc, did you see who was championing these 9 individuals and thinks that a union with gatekeeping ability would be great for Image Comics?
No, I missed
David
that
Brothers.
Oh, why am I not fucking
The
shocked?
original Image Comics gatekeeper.
Yep.
Oh, and person who personally sent me a threat one time.
Yeah, another Comics
that.
Alliance, jackwagon that got into the industry just to fucking ruin it. I'm not shocked at all. Look, he's a clown. And look, this I have no problem with unions. I like unions for the most part. They serve a very reasonable purpose. The problem here is none of this is actually going to improve anything for anyone that actually has a real stake in this. There's nothing that this thing can accomplish except for limiting the amount of work for other people. There's no real outcome because it doesn't apply to freelancers. It's not going to require things to be made in-house. All this is a bunch of essentially cubicle monkeys that want to be able to control creative decisions because they don't like the way what somebody says on Twitter. This is stupid. There's nothing to be gained here for the industry. There's no real protections being offered to employees. There's no it's not a situation where there's a significant conflict with management about overall working conditions. What is it expected to accomplish except for that final point that Aaron brought up? It's the only purpose of this is we want to be able to say what you guys can and cannot publish. Not the creatives, not the people that actually understand what the market wants or ostensibly are supposed to know what the market wants, even if they fail at it repeatedly, regularly. But no, this doesn't serve any purpose. It doesn't gain anything.
I try to imagine some office worker at Image that is usually the one responsible for changing the water jug in the cooler, going into a meeting and trying to tell Todd McFarlane that he can't hire somebody. I would love to be a fly on the wall for that meeting, because I think that would be pretty spectacular to see.
See, the thing I'm looking at here is like what this really seems like is a bunch of kids playing boardroom that think that they know what they're doing. It's it's like watching your kids pretend to be, you have your kids, all their friends are over, and they're pretending to be high powered, business executives, and that's okay, cool, until they want to say, and now we're gonna run this house. Oh, okay, go to your bedroom. You're grounded. That's where this ends up.
Set up the Lil Tykes boardroom for them, and they can go in there and they can play. While the
it's looked like Jim Valentino's behind this too, which is not good.
Is he, or did they just kind of include some quote that he said this summer that shows he supports unions? Because from what I understand, the people at Image said, "Hey, everything's fine the way it is. Thanks. We don't really need a union here." That's kind of what I caught. Am I missing something?
They had a new press release, a statement that they put out today, about an hour before we actually started. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that one out. And then the union put out this list of like 900 people, none of whom are associated with Image Comics, who support them. It was hilarious.
Could you imagine, though? I mean, I'm not against unions either, much like Doc said, but imagine if the union that was going to be in control of the content and the people working there were us, or better yet, some retailers. Like they had 20 retailers that kind of had an idea of not necessarily who gets canceled, but where these story arcs go. But Image is such a strange entity, because this is all creator-owned stuff. How dare the copy?
They don't have editors.
Yeah, right. So how dare these people think that they're going to hold some sort of power or sway over what comes out creatively, much less who gets to do it? I mean, is Eric Larson going to get canceled because he had some pornography or political stuff in his?
Oh no, they like.
No, they'll promote that. They'll make him the frontier book with that probably.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, it works both ways, right? So what if suddenly they've got this influx of people working there that don't agree with that sort of stuff? It's ridiculous on its face, and I wonder why they put it out there. I mean, I know they've all got. I mean, there's a Whisper network, so there's people that have their buddies that work at Screen Rant or Hollywood Reporter or whatever that are willing to make hay about this. But the smarter move would have been to have collected a bunch of dirt on the people in charge at Image and said, "Hey, we're going to do this."
Blackmail.
Yeah, right. That's the only way this was ever going to fly in my mind. When I saw it, it was kind of laughable.
Hold on, Doc. We're going to take a short detour, because Kenneth Dowling is on the anti-Doc bandwagon, and I'm celebrating. He says, "Sorry, Doc, Wolverine wins. Ford said Logan fighting instincts are just as advanced as any computer robot. He has a healing factor, knows martial arts, has unbreakable bones, adamantium claws. Logan wins over the Midnighter."
He's still wrong, but look. But back to the point of the conversation here. Look, this whole thing lasts until they decide that somebody that Mark Miller wants to work with, one of the artists, well, he said something problematic. We're going to not publish that. And they go, oh, okay. Now we're done. All right. You had your fun. Thanks. Bye. You're now all fired.
That's what it's all about. They want to dig up history from 10, 15 years ago. It doesn't matter. As soon as if they did get this power, they're going to start digging through things 20 years ago, 30 years ago from all these founders to be like, "Hey, Todd said this 30 years ago. We can't have this."
Well, it's not the founders. They just want to bring creators to heel. It says that they could essentially, stop you from publishing an image until you've provided, reparations. Essentially,
It doesn't. No,
whatever
that's not
they've
true.
decided that you
They
have
said
to
that for
do.
Warren Ellis. They said offered that to Warren Ellis. He is still not back. I mean, Warren Ellis has gone. He's been over backwards.
Which is sad. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
sad that we've gotten away from the merit of the work.
Mhm.
If the artist is good, I mean, it's one thing if they have raped children, right? Or if they've
Right.
done something that's really something heinous. But the fact that you said, "Hey, what's the difference between colored people and people of color?" That would immediately be pounced on by these folks if they just didn't like your politics, and that's ridiculous. I don't care about your politics or your personal beliefs if you're putting out a good story, if you're putting out great art, and just let it rise on its own. If it's any good, it's going to sell, and if it's not, it's not. These creators are just trying to do what they naturally do. And by the way, I agree with Kenneth about the Wolverine thing. Thank you.
Absolutely. We got Eric O'Sullivan chiming in. Thank you so much. Very generous, $25 supporting the channel. I'm a union chef, 13 years now. I get a great wage, seniority, and excellent health and dental. These were not the concerns leading off. It was struggle sessions. I can't take them seriously, yet I remain pro-union. Thanks.
Eric's
Yeah.
spot on. Yeah.
He nailed it. This is their goals here have nothing to do with the typical management versus labor
Bingo.
disagreement and where a union serves a purpose.
Yes.
Right.
This
Well,
is
Go ahead.
This is just we want to override the people that actually make real decisions.
Weren't the working conditions they complained about was the fact that they weren't getting extra pay for working from home or something?
They weren't provided materials like office supplies while they were at home.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it was a struggle session. Eric's spot on. Good assessment.
What
Yeah,
were you going to say there, Josh?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, some of the things they brought up were like realistic, but they lean too heavily into the like wanting to gatekeep and control.
You don't need a
And-
union because you want performance feedback.
Agreed. And what I will say, as far as the office supplies goes, like, we know these people don't make a lot of money, so if they're having to buy their own
Yes.
office supplies and they're not getting reimbursed, I'd be a little pissy about that too if I were at that salary. What I will say though is I actually would love to see a union come in for comic employees that are actual employees industry wide, because if you do, a lot of it will be probably focused on how much they're working or being overworked. And it might give us a situation where publishers are forced to decrease the amount of books they're putting out. We might actually get better work. So I would love to see that come into play. But this is a joke. And then what Chris brought up earlier with the whole the group, the majority, the mob rule right now fits what these people want, but it can change very quickly. And we've seen how fast people have been champions or spotlights for a certain community, and they get turned on in like no time. So yeah, gatekeeping, mob rules, it might seem like it's a good idea until it's not your path.
Purity tests are great when you think that you're right in line. As soon as the purity test turns against you, and it keeps you or keeps you out of the game and employed, all of a sudden it's probably not such a great idea. All
When
these
they
things
turn
always
on you, then you're the
Yes.
next one.
Yeah. We've got Eric Canetti here once again saying, I support the protections of people who make the products we value, but of the people supposedly forming this union, none of them are critical nor irreplaceable to the production of these products.
Truth.
He's right.
100% correct. Yes.
He's right.
Eric's
It's
dropping truth bombs.
yeah. It's just a bunch.
And the
of
headlines made it out like this
nobodies.
these were the comic book artists and writers and stuff. It's like none of them are involved in this because they're all freelancers.
Yeah,
All
even
have their
the
own
editor-
unique studios. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Eric Larson and Todd and the guys were rolling their eyes at this when it came out. It's like, oh my gosh, these guys again. And you're right. Josh is right. People that are having to pay for certain services, but to me, that's sort of an HR thing. That's sort of something that you could have just handled and said, hey, either do this or I'm going to quit. You don't go out and publicize that you're starting a union to get your office supplies paid for. I mean,
That's the guys. That's the outer wrappings,
yeah.
so they can say that they need a union, so they can actually push through what they want. But they already, showed their hand. Unfortunately, fortunately for us, I guess.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. They were hoping people wouldn't read all the way down at the bottom what the big demand
The
was.
very
Like,
last
oh,
point.
the first, it's like, oh wait, what is this down here?
They completely buried the lead intentionally.
Well, sure. They want to warm you up with the things that you accept. Oh, I accept that. I accept
Yeah.
that. Wait a minute. What is this? Right?
Yeah.
This is where we part ways.
Yeah, and see, I guarantee every single one of those demands is negotiable except for that one.
Yeah.
And that'd be the first one they cut.
Yep. And that's the first one where you just say, okay, well, that one flat out no. Sorry.
Well, as far as negotiating rates based on qualifications and letting the free market decide, and you know what comics are selling and what aren't, the problem is they're making consumable products, and that have to be merited in order to sell. You know, and a lot of times they're less stories and more lectures. So a union having the ability to negotiate and leverage their ability to force union members to strike. I mean, is that going to happen at Image? Image gets to decide the workplace rules and the consequences of violating the rules. So we all remember when Chuck Wendig went on his tirade on his own personal tweets, and Marvel let him go, right? So that kind of behavior could affect the reputation of Disney and Marvel. So even a union would have turned that into a court battle. I mean, there's pros and cons to unions. I get that. And I personally think that Marvel and Disney were within the rights to let Chuck go. But a union contract or something could have messed with that. So there are pros and cons to, or I should say there's really just challenges to having a union in the comic book industry. And like you said earlier, a lot of it's either amateur writers or freelancers.
Well, here's the thing with how much, like a union in comics is almost impossible.
It's an international.
At least for it, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the primary reason.
Yeah.
It's on for any of the creative side. Now you could do it for the office people for the I guess the logistics coordinators, the editors.
From home, you're replaceable though.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
less of their strength.
But regardless, you could do it for all the office personnel, but for basically everyone that's in a creative position, the writers, artists, colorists, inkers, the stuff that actually puts it that ends up on the paper. All those people, they live literally all over the planet, and they're all subject to different union regulations, and whether or not a union is even, permissible for that industry in their. So what? You're going to just, okay, fine. They start one here. Now they just hire only,
Scabs.
Venezuelan or, scabs. They just hire.
That's true. DC did that. I mean, Neil tried doing this back in the 70s at DC, I think. And then Dick Giordano was like, you know what? We're going to go to South America, get some talented guys who are just as great, if not as good as you, and have them start working on these books. And
with how many South American, Central American, and Southeast Asian artists there are at Marvel and DC at this point. I mean, that's where like 90% of their friggin' artistic teams from.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be subject to it.
That's right.
It wouldn't protect them. So all you're doing is all you'd be doing is guaranteeing that the American, Canadian, and European writers and artists don't get work anymore. That's all it's going to end up with.
Well, that's the problematic ones, though. So that's a win-win. Sounds like.
No. It would
be too expensive.
Their costs would be too expensive.
Yeah.
Right. What I mean is they cost too much, and these guys want to get rid of any problematic creators. So only the problematic ones are from Europe and America and Canada. So it's win-win. The union wins. All the creatives that they didn't like can't work. I'm just kidding, obviously. I mean, I'm for more transparency, better structure, better pay, of course. But I just think it needs to be according to merit and market. That's kind of my opinion on it.
Yep.
Eric O'Sullivan chimes in once again. A concern in comics is a living wage and health benefits. Absolutely. A union would be great for these things and the employees. That's like one of the problems is this doesn't involve any of the comic artists. It doesn't involve any of the writers. It's in fact, when you look at Image Comics, they have no exclusive contracts. Yeah. They have no editorial staff. They're like the weirdest as far as the publishers, the three that you would think of, Marvel, DC, and Image. That's the weirdest one because Marvel, at least, you got some exclusive creators, you've got, your editorial staff and stuff, under contract, and it would make sense possibly for there. The
Image is like a nonprofit, I think. That's what they say they are.
Image
Well,
basically, they just have. they're just a bunch of accountants and logistics people. That's it. And lawyers.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. What I will say,
if you want a living wage and you want health benefits, then comics is not the industry for you right now. It's just too small. It's just too small to support those things, unfortunately. I don't know what else to tell you.
I would say yes and no. I would love to see, like, and this is where as a business, I'm Image, take it out of the picture because I get they don't have the editors. I get it. But look at Marvel, look at DC. Like, they really need to break down their cost and profit of each book. And they need to set like a threshold line of like, here's our line. Because they're more concerned with perception of how much they have out and how good they're doing as opposed to how good they're actually doing. But there's no way they're turning a profit with every book that they have coming out. And with the industry being as small as it is, and I would say financially unstable as it is, you can't have that. Like, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting your employees up for failure. And that's where I'd kind of like to see a union come in for those editors. I know DC, I think the smallest number of books an editor has right now is like 9 books. That's already too much. It goes up. I know some editors have like 15 to 17 books. You can't work. You can't do your job properly. But yeah, there are aspects that come in. So what Eric's saying, I completely agree with. You know, editors should be making more than $30,000 to $40,000 if they're living in New York and Los Angeles. It's insane. And, you know, I think if they did, if these two companies did kind of set the standard of, okay, we are going to change this and set themselves up to be able to provide these things, you would see instances where you would get better talent coming in, whether it's an editor or creative. People that are good at their job want to work with other people that are good at their job. So if you can pay editors well to get good editors and have them do a good job, they're going to lure in some writers. And it may not be the writers or artists' main income. It may not be their main passion, but you'll start getting good work again. So there's a long-term strategy here that if they play it smart, they could be successful. I don't think they will because I don't think there's smart people running the company.
Well, I think that was the point that Eric Kennedy was making earlier with the KPIs, because that's exactly how you would have how you'd address these things.
But unions are, I mean, historically unions are like, whoa, KPIs, I don't know about this. You know, we're gonna have long talks about this.
Well, but
both.
Establish one or the other, because the union, let's be honest, the union for editors at Marvel and DC, it's not going to make any of them better at their job. Now it's just going to be protecting incompetent people from being fired. The time for a union at Marvel and DC was 25 years ago. Yeah. Now it's just a guarantee that it's going to be a giant disaster.
Well, the main question is, if you started a union within the comics industry, would that compel the companies to again start running like businesses instead of a clubhouse? Or would their parent companies just shut them down? Because now the already strained profit margin is just now not worth it. I mean, you know, in the case of Disney, they shut down profitable divisions all the time because it's just not profitable enough. You know, they've had like Disney Adventures Magazine was bringing in over $1 million a year to their bottom line. And they were like, based on what we're spending, this is not enough profit for us. And so they killed it. And they've done it with video game companies, and they've done it, you know, all along. So I think when you start, you know, the main question is, as beneficial as a union might be in an ideal situation, is it workable within the industry as it stands now? Or would the parent companies just say, this isn't worth it anymore? And now it doesn't matter that you have a union because there's just no work.
I couldn't foresee, I mean, I don't foresee Disney letting a union happen. I think they're going to try to fight it. But I do think you have to look at this beyond just the comics, because specifically with Disney and Marvel, they're looking, they know the comics is a small game, but they also know that these comics are leading into film and television where it is not a small game. So I don't think they would shut it down, because they've already said this is like a farm for them to test ideas. Like that is Marvel's intention, or Disney's intention with Marvel in the books. Like, they're letting them test ideas, get kind of feedback from just the market, but also just general customer feedback. But also they can kind of look at things and go, well, this is how we can do this better. This is how we can change this. They put out a film and make $1 billion. So I wouldn't see them shutting down publishing. I could be wrong.
The movies are already their own thing, though, and they're not really drawing from the source material anymore, except in the case of, like, you know, they've grabbed Ironheart and they've grabbed, you know, America Chavez and the Kate Bishop Hawkeye and some of these things that were not popular in comics. because then they can continue the franchise without the higher paid actor, which is always,
I think
from the moment they start bringing in these new characters, I kind of foresaw that that's what was happening. It was to feed the IP farm of the films without having to keep actors on long contracts.
I think a lot of it is literally they'd be keeping them open. They're keeping them open right now exclusively for the purposes of A, developing new IP, and B, keeping the rights active on, and the trademarks and everything else active on existing IPs that they haven't converted yet over into film. So that becomes, do they need it? Would a union impact that enough that they'd say, you know what, we'll find a different way to achieve this goal of keeping the IPs active and the trademarks active? I think that's where you really need to look at it for the design, like for how their decision-making process would be.
I hadn't considered that, Doc, but the trademark obviously is way more valuable than the comics coming out every month.
Absolutely. The DC trademarks alone, just in licensing, $1.5 billion in 2018. Orders of magnitude bigger than the entire comic book industry. Just on Batman logos and Superman logos on backpacks and T-shirts. So
with that, Wes, I think I'm gonna sign off. The hotel Wi-Fi is terrible. Obviously, I've dropped out a bunch of times. You said you're getting some popping on my end, so I don't want to drag down the stream. But I want to thank you guys for having me on. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad I got an opportunity to do it because I'm usually just not free on Saturdays.
Well, it was fun, and I'm glad you joined us. Do you have any comics to recommend before you jump out of here?
I already recommended Arcathena. I think go out and support Common America. All the indie stuff being done at Iconic is really great. Go out. I don't have anything that I think that I want to support in the mainstream, except maybe, I'm still enjoying Zdarsky's run on Daredevil. But, go out and support indie comics. That's where the creativity is happening. They're not just rehashing the same old ideas like Marvel and DC seem to be doing. We're going to get another. How long until we get Acts of Vengeance again? Just calling.
Didn't we just get that?
Again, he said, "Hey, did you Common America? Are you a Black Ops fan too, Aaron?"
I am indeed. I'm a Tim Lim fan. I like his art. I like his and Mark's work.
They're soliciting that. Really good guys. Well, I was going to say they're soliciting that. So if you don't want to go to Iconic Comics, you like to get your stuff pre-ordered to the comic shop or whatever, or DCBS. They are soliciting a one-shot for their latest Black Ops Apocalypse Now. Mark and Tim are. So that's in previews this month. So you can check that out too.
That's absolutely correct. All right, Aaron, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys.
You elevated the stream,
it.
Sir. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey,
wonderful.
Great seeing you, brother.
Aaron Sparrow. We've also got Robert Roberts with $10 Canadian, who says comic publishers have utterly exploited creators. Charles Schultz, Adam Scott Adams, Bill Watterson are all millionaires publishing comics while $1 billion a year industry. They can pay fair wages. That's the point. All of the writers and artists essentially in comic books now are freelancers. They're contractors. They couldn't participate in a union anyway, so these unions wouldn't help them anyway. These are like the staff workers. And in Image Comics case, they don't even have their own editorial staff. If you create a comic book and you submit it to Image and it gets approved, you have to pay your own writer, you have to pay your own artist, you have to pay your own editorial staff, inker, everything, which makes Image even more unique than DC and Marvel. So I agree that comic book creators deserve to be paid more. I agree that when their works are transferred to other mediums and generate billions of dollars, that they should get more compensation for their works being, used in other mediums. But I've always, this wasn't going to fix it.
I've always thought that, it should be, standardized language in the contract, especially once you've gotten beyond your initial contract, broken into the industry, proven that you have a little bit of chops. How these creators are not demanding, performance bonus shit. I don't understand it.
Well, think about like what Roberts there is saying, Charles Schultz, Scott Adams, Bill Watterson. That's because they created those characters that were endearing, profitable. The people that Tamaki working at DC writing somebody else's character is not going to become a millionaire. These people went out on their own, and the creations that they made were a hit, and that's why they're millionaires, not because of some union.
But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like getting it written into their contract where if my book is being published and it has less than 2 covers for each issue, and I manage to get the sales over 100,000, 50,000, 75,000, whatever that number is, month to month, that kind of performance bonus. How they're not already doing that, I have no idea.
I'll tell you why, Doc. It's because of leverage. Who are you going to leverage? You're going to leverage Marvel against DC, DC against Marvel. And then if they both say no, what are you going to say? Well, I'll take my book over to Image. We'll have fun taking all the risk that we were going to take for you by publishing with Marvel or DC. There's no leverage because the industry is too small.
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about
That's how you negotiate. You negotiate with leverage.
Yeah, I know. And if they're already approaching you, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like, okay, I get brought in on writing fucking Wonder Woman. And the sales have been bad. All right, cool. You're bringing me in. You want me to help improve. Obviously, ostensibly, you want me to at least keep the sales the same, if not improve them. I will do it at the shit rate you're paying me. But if I can get it to this level without you doing, I'm not going to take credit for your sales gimmick trick bullshit. But if I can get it to that level on a monthly basis, I want a higher rate. I don't see how I guarantee that if that was how the contracts were written, it's a win-win for both parties because it gives the employee initiative to try to improve sales. And
I can tell you, Doc, I've talked to creators behind the scenes about their negotiations with Marvel and DC. Specific artists that your mind would be blown the way that they are negotiated with, and that is not the industry that we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about some of the most craziest stuff I've ever heard that I thought was some of the most unprofessional tactics used by the publishers as leverage over the creators themselves.
Yeah,
well, I mean, again, yeah. I'm not surprised. It's a bunch of people that don't understand business trying to engage.
What
in
you're
business.
suggesting, Doc, ought to be just normal. Like, hey, by the way, if you can get the book a 20% increase, then we're going to give you a bonus. That should just sort of be part of it. But it's quite the opposite. If
you increase sales by 30%, you will get a 10% page rate bonus.
Yeah.
If you increase it by 50%, you will get a 30% page
if you
rate.
keep it above a certain.
Yes, but you have to keep it above that 4x number of. That is simple. That is simple, basic business. But I mean, I guess it is called. I always forget that it's
Could
comics.
you imagine a greedy company saying, "Okay, so we're not going to do any incentives. We're not going to put you out any press releases. We're not going to do any variant covers, so we can sort of suppress your numbers, so we don't have to pay you more." Could you imagine? They would do that.
And you know what? If I was the creator on that, I'd look at it as a fucking challenge. Oh, you're going to do that? You're going to try to sabotage? Fine. I will still do it and get my bonus.
Love it.
But a lot of them just aren't the type A personalities. That's the problem. A lot of them are just very type B. They don't have that competitive edge or that backbone to do that.
I mean, you got a company, you got a bunch of people in the industry that have no spine, and no ability, no desire to do better, like actual results better, not like whatever their weird be better thing is.
All right, guys,
and a bunch of publishers that don't know shit about business.
All right, well, that's the Image Comics Union discussion. We could do probably a 2 or 3 hour special just on that alone because it's pretty crazy. So next thing we're going to talk about are the rising prices of comic books. We're seeing there are regular comic books out there, not specials, not a miniseries or anything. They're $6 now. A lot of new #1 issues have gone up to $6. A lot of your more premium titles are at least $5 at DC and Marvel now. I don't know, Doc. What's the limit for you? When does Marvel Comics hit the I can't do it anymore level for you? Is it $10 for an X-Men comic?
Monthly book at they got one more dollar maybe out of me, and even that's no guarantee.
Are you saying 5 or 6? What do you say?
No, five as the monthly. That anything beyond, you're just not going to get me to break more than a Lincoln on it. I think Lincoln. Wait, who the fuck's on a $5 bill?
Lincoln.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah. You're not going to get me to go more than a Lincoln on a comic. Sorry. I mean, so actually, you know what? It's actually like $4.50. Like $4.49 would be my limit because after tax, it's $5. It's over $5. So no, I just don't go beyond that.
So
You're
if it's
getting
just
a
a regular
diminished
monthly
collection
comic,
right now,
you're
'cause they're
about
all
to
$5.
you're about to exit comic books, Doc.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I will spend all of my otherwise dedicated comic book money on back issues. I got plenty of that to buy. I got 80 years worth of comics that I can go back and buy. They can lick my balls if they think I'm gonna keep paying their increasing prices. Sorry.
Lade Kramer says this week I picked up what is it? The
Long Halloween.
Long Halloween special in Reptilia #6. I realized I spent $13 on 2 comics. And when I got into my car, I went, "What the fuck am I doing? What are you doing, Lade Kramer? $13 for 2 comic books."
That's a trade paperback right
Spent
there.
$13 on this the other day. I didn't feel like I got ripped off.
That's 1.3 volumes of manga.
Oof.
Those are like 250 pages each.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What do you think? What do you think, Josh? Are you a bigger baller than Doc? Is your limit like $7? How much can your wallet handle before you say fuck this?
I mean, look, I think a lot of this comes down to quality and your definition of what is good. If I think something's good quality, I'm more than happy to support it. And I have this one aspect of me that I do feel like writers don't get paid enough, artists don't get paid enough, so I want to support them. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier too, though. If our publishers weren't overcharging so they could pay for the books that aren't actually meeting their cost or selling to meet their cost, we wouldn't have this problem as badly as we do. Yeah, I don't know. Just how high can comic prices go? I'm trying to avoid a political conversation here about inflation and taxes and everything else that comes into this, but I think we got
part of the game, Josh.
I know it's all part of the game. I could spend like a 45-minute rant talking about inflation.
Same.
I'm just like I'm trying so hard not to say things right now. I'm having trouble actually saying something. I think I think what we have to do is as a group of people, as fans, as people who love comics, we have to kind of gain back control of the market. And I don't think that's going to happen until this whole speculator boom ends, because so much stuff is false wins. We're seeing false positives all over the place. So once that dies down, once people kind of realize, oh, you're not going to have these money hauls that you're thinking you're getting from these books, and it's back to just we're buying books because they're quality, or maybe we like the characters, it'll start to correct itself a little bit. But until then, it's only going to get worse.
Drew, do you see the false positives in the industry as a retailer?
Say it again.
Do you see the false positives that Josh is talking about, where it looks like a win, but if you really get into the details, you can see there was some marketing gimmickry that was used to kind of inflate numbers and make things look a little bit rosier than they are.
There's always that. It's always been. It's especially there now. It's even more so there now. I mean, we've said it, I don't know how many times at this point, with the variant covers, the ratios, the store exclusives, I mean, and it's always going to be there. And yeah, it's always a false positive. But I mean, it's amazing how I just remembered, I keep thinking, drawing the line at $2.99. I just remembered Dane DiDio, Jeff Johnson.
It wasn't that long ago.
It was like 10 years ago. They said that. 10
Yep.
years. Holy crap.
They said that during Rebirth.
Yeah, I was watching that presentation.
That
I'm
was
like,
like
this is
5
awesome.
years
This
ago.
is how you do it.
Yeah.
You're selling us with these great creators, great titles, drawing line at $2.99. You've got me. But they're not doing that anymore. And unfortunately, I mean, Josh said, if you follow the rate of inflation, it's looking like probably by 2025, I think that's going to be the breaking point year. We're probably going to be like $5.99, maybe $6.99 at 2025. And I think that's going to be a point where people are going to start really dropping out, and creators may have to really up their game on getting creators back into working on these titles.
Well, they're kind
But
of putting retailers in a weird spot here, Drew, because
Mhm.
as they increase the prices, obviously the trades become a better value.
Yeah.
So now you got a trade weight. Well, do
Yeah.
I want to go to my LCS and buy the trade, or do I want to buy it from Amazon, which can give me immediately a 25% discount against any LCS?
But if you make them, if they get, I mean, DC and Marvel, they're doing things for retailers where they can make them more exclusive to the retailers. So that's where that exclusivity begins. Where it's like, if I can make something exclusive to only Comics Elite, then that's going to increase the value and the price. That's where the price point may be worth it. That low print run. So that's where it's going to be.
Look, the problem with pricing and content and everything has been a 30-year long problem. And we are legitimately past the point of no return. There's not going to be new readers coming in any significant quantity to offset the old. You cannot increase, you cannot keep, even if they kept the books prices flat, let inflation blow past it to in order to decrease the relative cost. You're still not going to get increases in readership. They need to work. The process needs to be an incremental process in order to bring prices, actually dollar prices, not relative inflation adjusted, actual dollar prices down. And the only way to do that is to drastically increase the amount of consumption. So you need, if a book's selling 40,000, it needs to sell 40,000 to even now. If you want to drop $1 off that price, it needs to sell 80,000. Sorry, that's just the way the math works.
Well, and also I think that DC's doing card stocks and they're doing all kinds of things to increase the paper thickness or quality to try to increase like you feeling like you got a better value for the higher price. But all I really need are good stories. You know, you got guys like Peter Simeti that's still printing on newsprint. And to DC's credit, they have held the line at $2.99 on their Scooby-Doo Batman Mysteries. I think that's the only $2.99 thing out there, which is great.
Besides Spawn.
That's right.
Spawn,
Spawn has too. And I commend that. It's such a thin margin to make any money that it's the long, hard process. Like what Doc is saying is make the art and the story good. And then people feel better about spending more money, but all the gimmicks and the cardstock covers and all that, people just, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care how flashy the comic was. Did I have a good time? Did I enjoy consuming this? Right. It doesn't matter what the price is if you enjoyed it.
We've got Kenneth Mallard here says, too late, Kramer. What you should have done instead of buying Reptilian in the Long Halloween special is buy Superman 78 #3. Damn, what a great book. Maybe the best book in the market right now. You are correct. That thing is hot. And I don't even really like the original Superman movie. I like the sequel. But that is a damn good comic book. If you it's definitely one of the best ones out there, Josh. We've also got Kaiser S supporting the channel, but I don't see a question or anything. If you have a question, definitely put it in there and I'll try to get back to it. If you're just supporting the channel, thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that. What do you think, Chris? What you have an invested stake in the industry. You've got a website and everything. Is there a line for you? What's your line? It's obviously not $2.99.
They crossed the line for me.
Is it $8.99?
Think about it.
Chris Brawley holding the line at $8.99.
$10.99, $20. I pre-order. I pre-order through Cowabunga. I was a DCBS customer for a long time. So at first, when these prices started increasing exponentially, I just kind of patted myself on the back saying, hey, at least I'm not paying cover price, right? I was paying half price. But at a certain point, I mean, when half price is $5, I'm out. So I've extended my ability to hang on a little bit further. But like I said earlier, I'm buying the omnibus. I've been buying the Conan, the Savage Sword. I'm anxious for the next John Burns.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm anxious for the next John Burns. The Thing is coming out, so I'm going to get that. So I like those collected editions. I still haven't bought into digital yet, but more and more digital looks like the way to go.
Never.
Yeah, I mean, I like mine to be tangible, but you see some long boxes back here. At a certain point, what happens is I only have so much space.
I don't rent my comics. I don't rent my comics.
Well,
if it's not
that's
DC
true.
and Marvel,
yeah,
and you buy a trade on Comixology, you can download it.
And own it. Yeah, DRM. Yes. That's right. Yeah, I'm the same way, Doc. I'm big on physical media, but I do have to have that space. So what I'll do is I'll go through this 9 or 10 long boxes I've got and go, okay, what have I read and can take it and sell it, because I'm keeping the books bagged and boarded, and I'm shocked sometimes at how much money I can get for some of these back issues. And I don't need to keep them stored, but I do prefer the physical book, and I do prefer owning what I like, and to me, it's just the price. I got priced out a long time ago, I think, on floppies.
So Lane Kramer says, "Well, Reptilian gave me all the weird that was promised." Wes, that is a damn weird book, isn't it, Josh?
I
think it's almost worth it for like the car wreck aspect of the story.
I don't know. I'll disagree.
Were you recommending it, Drew? I kind of recommended it just on the weird factor.
Sean recommended it. I told Sean, I'm like, I have no clue what to recommend. I can not recommend it. I can't make it a met. I can't. I'm like, I don't even know what this book is. I'm like, I have no clue where I'm at right now reading this.
I know it went right and then veered left. Yeah. I'm sitting there going, I don't know what I'm reading, but it's really strange.
Yes. When you have Batman telling Killer Croc to go stuck on a tent, like, what the hell is going on?
Your kid wants to bang you.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
What?
You can't look away.
Well, you know what they say, incest is best.
Put your sister to the test? Sorry.
Bravo.
Oh, my God. I love
so we also got a super chat from Sean Murphy. Why are the big two riding off Gen X's fans? Why do they think we've all died out? I would come back even for early Bendis Brubaker level writing. That is one of the weird things. I'm Gen X. I'm only 43. I've probably got at least another 30 years of comic book reading in me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing. The entire corporate world has always written off Gen X, mostly because we're the one weird generation. We're sandwiched between two ridiculously absurd generations, and we're the one that wasn't able to.
We don't like being pandered to.
We don't like being pandered to.
And we do like to rebel.
We like to rebel. They can't control us. And we're the ones that decided, all those cool properties and franchises and shit that are out there now, like, Transformers and He-Man. Those were the things that were hitting when we were kids. And we're the ones that popularized those things. The only problem is we're also the ones that reject them whenever they make them poorly. Because we know what like the
Josh and fucking Drew, they're ruining everything.
Time out. Let's be for real. Millennials are not the problem. Gen Z is the problem.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
I think you're like a mix of like what, brother?
I will say I do think there's a line with millennials, and you have your older half and then your younger half, because you have the older half that kind of lived through the transition of technology,
and their older brothers and sisters are Gen X or
so
assholes.
you kind of like, and then you have the younger half that came in and technology was there. So we're a weird split grouping of how much the world changed. Well, I'm gonna keep that coming to myself. I'm going to go political today, Wes. Like, I'm wanting to throw just political things out there.
This isn't a political channel.
Well, I was just going to say, with millennials in particular, you have to look at, too, like how much the world changed. Like when we were stepping up to become adults, that's when the recession hit. So much of what we were promised and taught, this is what you need to do, this is how you will win, this is how you succeed, ended up getting blown back in our face. So there's a reason for us to be a little like,
listen, Josh, the first computer I ever used had something called a turtle that I got to move on the screen. It was green. And you know what color the turtle was? Lighter green. And I had to type in code to make it move. You want to tell me about the world changing? Get out of here with that shit.
Well, no, but that's my point. Like, we grew up even with that starting to come into play, but it wasn't dominant. Like,
you
it wasn't
had
a major
Windows
factor
when you got to school.
So that happened. I think we had our first computer classes when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade. And that's when we started.
Sorry, they
But-
started you late, John.
Hang on, I think I'm
Look,
getting
my-
a fax. Hang on.
I know, right? No, we had faxes.
Where's my
Like,
pager when I need it?
I remember being at my dad's business and it was like faxes were coming through. But my point is, like, we kind of got to change with it. So for us, we started with the, how things were. And then as technology developed, we kind of grew with it and experienced it as it grew. You've got this younger demographic that just stepped right into like, this is the way. And they have no concept of what it used to be.
We went from telephones that you had to spin a dial on to little magic boxes in our pocket in Gen X. We went, your changes were much less severe, let's just say.
Man, we went from Kentucky Fried Chicken to KFC. Do you know what that was like, Josh?
Well, it's now going from Dairy Queen to DQ.
Exactly.
It's awful.
What do you think, Drew? Are Gen Xers being written off as like, these guys are all dying off? I'm like, I'm in my early 40s.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. I mean, these are the new baby boomers. These are the guys who have the money. Why are you writing them off? Why are you writing off money? This is money.
Would you like money?
We're coming back to idiots that don't understand business running businesses again.
See, this is why Sean and I know our primary customer base. We know for a fact our customers are between 35 to 50 males. All right.
Yep.
Hey, Gen Xers, we want your money.
Hey, that's actually millennials too. Millennials go up into like I think the early 40s right now. So
41-ish, yes.
Yeah.
But on what you look at, we got Kenneth Dowling. What's cool about Superman 78? Whoops. Is the first two issues were actually I'm gonna cough. I'm fighting it.
What's cool about Superman 78 is that the first two issues were action packed. Issue 3 has no action really, but is just as interesting and engaging. Venditti is a hell of a great comic book writer.
agreed.
He's the best.
Yeah.
It just he knows how to write a story. A story ebbs and flows. You can't have action all the way through. It's like you get. I mean, the story element he brings up in this terrific issue. It's like there's a return of some characters we thought were dead, and it's great. It's perfect.
Man, I love it when everyone tries to start calling me a boomer. Whatever. That bothers me just as much as calling me an incel. Find a new way to hurt my feelings because that stuff isn't working.
I mean, they're free to be factually wrong. That's fine. I really don't care. Doesn't hurt my feelings.
There's somebody with their name is aggressively relaxing.
I want to see how that works.
I like it. That's
I mean, maybe it's like a massage. Like if I get a good, deep, aggressive massage, it relaxes me. If you come in with a wimpy massage, I'm like, kick rocks.
All right, Drew, we'll let you have the last word on this one. As a comic book retailer, I'm sure you and Sean and other people within the store have talked about this. You've probably talked to other stores.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, and I think Perch just talked about it. That's why I decided to put it in here. Is that the thing that is most likely to really decline sales in comics are price increases. What do you think is the line where it's just like the point of no return? Because once you do a price increase, it's almost impossible to do a decrease. Where do you think DC and Marvel will go too far?
I think I'm saying by 2025, when we hit $5.99 or $6.99, that's where we're going to start seeing the big change.
Yep.
It'll all go digital.
I wouldn't say all digital, but we're going to start seeing even more exclusives when people can start making their own personal exclusive comics through DC and Marvel, make them even more rarer. That's what it's all about.
A Thinking Critical exclusive 50 print run.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
We're getting close to my inevitability. One guy paying $80,000 for a comic. I can't wait for it to happen.
That's the NFT market, Doc, actually. So we're going to talk about the Eternals being banned from theaters. We're not going to be able to talk about Timeless. That was kind of stupid anyway. I didn't want to talk about it. So we do have Eternals are getting banned in certain markets within the Middle East. It looks like they are not going to get approved for China due to some of the LGBTQ representation and story elements that were in the story.
And
I do applaud Marvel or Disney because they were approached and said, if you want to release this movie here, you have to change your story, and they have not done it. They have remained, artistic. They have artistic integrity as far as this story. What are your thoughts on this one, Josh?
I think it's kind of twofold. You either have to look at it from a business perspective of we're going to try to make as much money as possible and know that you can't do these things overseas to begin with. Or, one of the things we've been griping about and even commenting on here in the stream is like, if you're going to do something to say like, hey, we're showing representation and it's important to us, then you actually have to do it. And I think this is an example of them saying, okay, we're actually going to do it. And as much as we see bad representation, I will say the representation in this film is done well. It's tastefully done, and it's not shoved down your throats. It's literally just a minor subplot that's there for maybe 5 minutes, and there's never a, oh, look, it's gay people. I think the press around this have said, oh, look, here's a gay couple. But within the confines of the story itself, it's probably it's the one example of like, here is family and here's, I don't want to give away spoilers of the plot of the film, but what's taking place, this is how it impacts families. And that's the whole approach to it. But, I think Disney knew if they were going to keep it this way, they've had gay things in their films before that were background or just a quick scene that they could easily cut. Because this was an actual plot, there was no way of cutting it and keeping a character's motivation. So I'm fine with it. I honestly, not the fact that it was gay, just the storyline here. It could have been a straight couple. The storyline that was here is probably the most resonating part of this film. So I'm glad they're keeping it.
I mean, I'm fine with.
I'm banned
this.
From China.
Yeah. Josh is actually banned from the Middle East, but
I don't think that it's the gay representation that banned them from China. I think it's the director's comments.
For China specifically, yeah. But the Middle East was the gay thing. It's still illegal to be gay in most countries in the Middle East, so I get it. But I think
Disney is going to boycott those countries like they boycotted Georgia or whatever, or threatened because no, of course not. Okay.
No, of course not. But
I think they'll use this as taking their stand.
Look, this is typical. I mean, this is right where Marvel is right now. And I think they're going to have, honestly, I think they're going to look at this as kind of a little bit of a blessing, because any failure that this movie has in reaching its, in underperforming, they could blame on not having those other markets, regardless of how much those markets would have put into it in the first place. Not having those markets, because look, I know a lot of us have said this, and I don't know. I mean, I kind of checked out. I haven't seen any of the movies since Endgame. I haven't bothered to watch. I think I watched one of them on the high seas, and the other two I haven't even bothered to watch since Endgame. And I think a lot of other people mentally checked out after that. So we were already I was kind of already expecting a little bit of a dip in performance now, and I think a lot of other people were too. Plus the fact that it's the Eternals, and literally nobody gives a shit about the Eternals. No one has ever given a shit about the Eternals. No one ever will give a shit about the Eternals. But now they have an excuse if it underperforms.
Well, Kenneth Allen kind of as that. He says, this is the first time I haven't rushed to see a Marvel film. I don't care who is represented in the movie. This movie was not interesting to me to see. I have heard from Jesse Blaze Snyder, who talked about how much he hated Shang-Chi, that he really liked the Eternals. Josh says it's not bad. I'm sorry I cut you off there, Chris.
Well, I'm sorry too. I think that it's just a loss leader for Marvel. I mean, it's a smart play. I am a fan of the original Jack Kirby run. I didn't care for some of the stuff that Gaiman did and what followed. But I'm more of an art guy than a story guy anyhow. But I think that this is a loss leader for Marvel. They knew that this was going to have potentially, at least initially, appear to be the same energy as their Inhumans movie that they also did on television. And they've tried to do some world building here, and they're trying to enter into this new phase. And, I wish them well. I'm not that interested in it. I watched Black Widow, and it was it was a disappointment to me. I don't know why. I mean, it used to be a big deal to go see these Marvel movies. A whole bunch of us would go out, and the DC movies as well. A big group of us would go watch them. And I think after the pandemic, obviously that got tamped down a little bit, but the energy just hasn't come back yet. I still haven't seen Shang-Chi. I haven't seen the Eternals. I'm sure I'll eventually watch it, but I'm far more interested in something like Dune these days than I am what Marvel's output is. And looking ahead, the only thing I'm kind of excited about from Marvel is their Moon Knight series on Disney Plus. So maybe I'm the wrong audience.
Man. I'm gonna watch Hawkeye. I think what's her name's Haley Steinfeld's gonna be great.
Yeah, that
I think
looks
it's gonna be the best version of Kate Bishop we've ever seen. Perhaps
I
the
don't
only
care
good
about
version of that character.
the only.
What's up, Doc?
I was going to say the only good version of that character that's ever existed was Alan Heinberg's.
I don't know. There's an old man Hawkeye story where she's helping a blinding Clint Barton chase down and settle some old scores. It's actually really good.
Yeah.
But she's not the star there. She's like a supporting character.
You can make the argument she steals the book from Clint at the end of it. You know, it was mostly Clint's book. Then she comes in and kind of takes over.
When you say steal, you're going to get Doc upset. He meant like steals the seed. She didn't steal the book from him, Doc.
Okay, yeah.
It was still Clint Barton's book.
Thief.
No. I get that. I'm just saying
that's a
nobody's
damn good
ever.
book too, man. That was tight.
Yeah, I mean, hey, awesome, great. Look, I hope all these movies do perfectly fine. I just don't care about them anymore, and I think they have a ready-made excuse with their bannings.
Well, you have a ready-made excuse when you have X-Men come in there, and then you can care again.
No, because I know that they're going to end up using some bits of the Hicksman crap in it, and no. I have no interest in that shit.
What if they go full Claremont?
If they go full Claremont, well, I already saw 4 movies that were full Claremont.
Those were Fox movies. Those weren't MCU.
I know. I don't really give a shit whether or not they're in the
Feige
MCU.
magic on them. What they bring
so
Jackman back?
I never, honestly, Jackman, I tolerated. I didn't like him. He was too tall. Sorry, Wolverine shouldn't be the tallest guy on the fucking team.
Well,
He was taller than Cyclops.
that's true.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the
That was huge
Four
fucking
flick.
Jackman, man. What are you talking about? He's a legend.
Yeah, what I'll say about right now with the MCU, I think you're definitely getting that they're in a huge transitional period. And I think the thing that's becoming more clear about the films, and they've even kind of discussed this, is how we've had phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 so far. Going forward, they're abandoning the phases and going just direction. So they're going to have their celestial storylines going. And maybe you can consider that the phase, but you'll have your movies that are the celestial stuff or the space stuff. You'll have your kind of like down to earth, and then you're going to have your kind of darker leaning mystical type things going on. So they're going that route. And I kind of described Eternals and even what we've seen with some of the shows recently is like that Age of Ultron situation where you watch it and you're like, all right. And then, 5 to 10 years from now, after everything else comes out, you'll look back at it with more appreciation. But it's hard to get
Age of Ultron at all.
Oh, I do. I think there's plenty of great moments in Age of Ultron.
Like what?
Is this a Joss Whedon thing, Wes?
When it was over?
No,
I love
there's
Firefly. I like Serenity. Those are some of my favorite movies and TV shows.
You can also, I mean, look, if we went into the behind the scenes stuff, there's plenty of stuff that was going on in Age of Ultron where you had 3 different people calling the shots. And it was a battle of them to get their will and their way. And the story suffered because of it.
Well, I'm not arguing with that. You said there was some good stuff. You forgot to name it. What was it? Was it when Quicksilver died? I mean, I don't really like Taylor Johnson all that much.
That was a good subvert of expectations. Like, you didn't expect a new hero to come in and die like that. It kind of created some risk. I thought the use of Scarlet Witch was good. There's some great stuff between Tony and Cap that set up the rest of the arc for them. Like, that's where they started falling apart. So, you had these building blocks in there that really led to good things. They just did too much, which is the problem with the Eternals. They do too much, that you didn't have a good story there. But the way it impacts, it's kind of like comic books. We look at comic books, we talk about how great some runs are. Sometimes you have to look at the MCU from that perspective. You can look at a story arc and go, yeah, it was okay. When you look at the run holistically, you're like, that's a great run. That's kind of what happens with the MCU.
The only thing I liked about Age of Ultron was the voice of Ultron.
I love Spader.
James Spader.
Yeah. Wow.
What a miss not having James Spader pop up in an episode of WandaVision. Like, what was that about?
Good point. Good catch.
My goodness.
Well, accounting is so weird.
They also had a huge miss by not making Thanos interested in Hela. And that was his goal. Like, that was his motivation, not some stupid bullshit about balancing out the universe.
Right. Yes, they're starving people, Doc, on other galaxies.
Yeah, instead of just, hey, I'm doing this to impress the goddess of death. This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah. LK says skip Eternals and stream Stargirl season 2. It was amazing.
Oh God,
you didn't like Stargirl season 2?
No, I gave up. I gave up.
Say don't spray it. Come on.
No, like I aside from the Superman and Lois. No, I'm all for Jeff Johns. He needs to write more comic books too. Aside from Superman and Lois, like, avoid CW shows at all costs. That's the
first 2 seasons of Flash are so good.
I agree with
that. The first 2 seasons of Arrow were terrific. Probably
agreed.
Yeah. Remember the first 5 seasons of Smallville?
Yeah. Well, no, you know what? I really liked the first season of Stargirl. I got through about like 5 episodes, 6 episodes, like half the way through this season. It was just a chore, and I had about like 5 more episodes on my DVR, and I deleted them. I'm like, nope, I'm out. It was just such a chore to make it through this season. I don't give a shit anymore.
Kenneth Delling's brought a point where I think we're closer to this than a lot of us would like to realize. I think after Endgame, they should have just done a hard reboot of the MCU, recast everyone, and do more stories from the comics. And then you could have started with the Fantastic Four and X-Men in the universe. It's going to be very complicated to get them in there and make it feel like it's organic or natural fitting. They're having to do way too much stuff with the multiverse. It's going to become exceptionally complicated, just like a lot of these comic book universes can become.
But the problem is that you have to find those charismatic actors that people can cling to, and I go back to an episode.
I'm willing to play Thor. I'm just putting it out there.
I go back to an episode of Mad Men. Mad Men's my favorite show of all time. There was a great episode where they're trying to recreate a scene from Bye Bye Birdie with Anne Margaret. And they're like, they do recreate it for a commercial. And they're like, it's missing something. It doesn't work. And they're like, it's not Anne Margaret. You can recreate Tony Stark as much as you want, but it's like, it's not Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Doc, someone just called you a whiny baby. Did you know that?
Yeah. Whatever.
Whiny baby.
Man, baby.
Ain't the worst shit I've been called on here. Ain't gonna
Not
be the
this
worst
week.
shit I'm gonna get called. No. I mean, shit. Come on. If you're gonna come at me, give it a little bit more.
Yeah. I think you're a feckless dickhead. I will call you ditchhead.
Yeah. and honestly, I even think that's a low effort. Come on, bitch, bring it.
Well, there's rules on YouTube. I just can't say
right.
what I'm thinking.
You can't say what you're actually thinking.
Yeah.
We all started out so nice and polite with each other. We've devolved into name calling.
That's what happens.
It's
Does anyone else have something to say about Eternals being banned from theaters? It sounded like you had something you wanted to sign off with there, Chris.
Well, I just think, that Marvel is they're serving several masters here. They knew that this movie was going to get banned. They knew it. So what they may as well do, and this is just my thought, is take some relatively unknown characters, use that to have some diversity and inclusion so that they can tick those boxes to satisfy the people that are demanding it. Knowing the movie's going to get banned, they can get a little more juice out of it that way, but knowing also that we're not going to hire a huge expensive cast, a huge expensive director, that there's not a lot of production money that's been spent on this movie. You can kind of see some of the scenery. I mean, there's some stuff there, but it's not Age of Ultron money. And so I see it as sort of a loss leader where they can say, well, we did that. We gave you that. We gave you the inclusion. We stuck by our guns. We didn't go to China. We didn't go in the Middle East because we did that. Now we're going to get back to just being focused solely on action adventure. And if there's a gay character, who cares? I mean, but we're not going to be marketing that way. Now it can just be part of the holistic universe. And now they don't have to sort of do these things to satisfy people that want a black Iron Man. We've got it. Right, or a gay Marvel superhero. We got it. Now we've sort of satisfied the people that are demanding these certain things in their comic book movies. And now we can get back to, let's just tell some fun stories. And this is the wide range of characters that we have. And we knew we were going to suffer a loss with this, but so be it. I think it's a smart play by Marvel. I think that it's a bit cynical, maybe a bit pandery, maybe, I don't know. I mean, we could argue that back and forth, but, even Josh is saying he had a great experience at the movie, and I'm hearing that too, that it's a little bit long. It's a little bit time out. Sorry, not great experience. Maybe I should qualify that, but I don't think the movie's going to do great, and I think they're going to lose money on it, and I don't think there's going to be an Eternals 2 from this.
No, I think they already said there won't be a sequel. I think, didn't they? Yeah.
Well, no, there was a creator that said he doesn't see the point of having a sequel, but if you see the movie, it definitely sets up a series. Like, either a series of films or a television series or something. Like, the way it ends, we're getting more. And it may not be an Eternals film, but it's going to fall over into other films.
When you're really trying to just set up the Black Knight as your big thing, sorry guys, you might. Are you going to set up Paste Pot Pete? Are you going to set up Paste Pot Pete for the next one? Is that your big lead?
And here's what I'll say about this. It's hard to talk about Eternals without going into spoilers. But I would say the all these things that people are talking about are the big things of this film. That's media pushing it, and it's not the story itself. The story itself, the big thing is we're setting up this huge cosmic problem.
Yeah, Warlock.
And that is by far the story. The biggest issue I had with this film is it should have been 2 films. You should have had one film just introducing the Eternals, explaining what they are, having them go through or fighting the deviants to stop them, and having them go through time. And shown that, and there's some character moments throughout there that you could have expanded on. That would have been a good film, a great film that's a lot of fun because you didn't get to dig into it. And then the back half of what the film is, which I'm not going to go into detail about, like that should have been the second film entirely. And you would have had something that was so much more focused on both aspects. You would have had 2 most likely great films. You don't get that. You just get a crammed, just super compressed mess of a script. But there are moments that are excellent. So that's why it's always like this. There's stuff that I think is better done in this movie than any other Marvel movie. It reaches more depths. It goes into themes that are deeper and more meaningful than any other film has done in the MCU. At the same time, you never fully get to explore it, so it just feels watered down. It's a give or take.
Not a good experience. Not a good experience.
It's a 50-50. Like I will say, if you're
could a good fan edit improve it?
If they filmed other stuff, yeah.
Okay.
One of the problems too is like it also depends on what your idea is of film in general. So if you can appreciate a lot of the quote unquote finer aspects, the technical aspects, you're going to find a lot to like. If you're just a general audience member that wants to be entertained, you're going to hate this movie.
I got you.
See, I'm an idiot that likes popcorn movies, so I'm going to probably be bored out of my fucking mind.
Well, there you go, Doc. We got Kenneth Dallin says, he's not on Team Doc. That's the good point here.
Yeah.
Let me back up Josh on the good points of Age of Ultron. Oh, I'm confident. Hulkbuster versus Hulk, Steve and Tony Friction, Spader as Ultron and destroying Sokovia. These movies and shows can be like comic runs. Was Hulkbuster versus Hulk? I mean, it is a good opener, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good action sequence. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. That's the popcorn.
Yeah.
They missed a lot of opportunity. They missed a lot of opportunities in Age of Ultron. That's where the big flaw in that is. They could have finally done a Gray Hulk. They were inching towards it, and then they didn't. They could have done something bigger. They could have set up Strucker as a bigger villain, and they just killed him off screen, basically.
Yeah.
The next big Marvel, or probably the future for the foreseeable future, the next biggest Marvel blockbuster is going to be this Spider-Man movie. Yeah. I think it's going to be huge.
Doctor Strange.
Okay, well, maybe, but only in the aftermath of Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man's going to be the biggest one for a while.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, because you're getting all these cameos and these characters from the other Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh wait, I thought Doctor Strange came out first.
No, it's Spider-Man coming
Never
out
mind.
December. Doctor Strange just got pushed back.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah.
And I like Strange. We should do a Doctor Strange versus Superman. That would be a good one.
Oh, Strange has got him.
Yeah, I know.
Strange smokes him.
Wouldn't that be
You
fun?
guys are out of your mind. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up. We're way into the time here. Let's do some comic book recommendations. Before we get into all this, I do want to ask Drew. I didn't get to listen to the podcast. Did you read Newburn? Was it good?
Sean did. I didn't because I saw it coming a mile away. I knew what was going to happen. As soon as I saw the intro of the one female character, I'm like, I should have bet Sean $100 this character is going to end up being his partner at the very end, and I would have won. And it's like it is the most predictable, laziest Netflix pitch I had read in a comic. It was like
I didn't pay for it yet. I'm happy. I'm taking it off the pull list.
It was like a crappy Ray Donovan comic. That's the way I saw it.
Crappy Ray Donovan comic sounds better than a Brian Michael Bendis comic.
Fair enough. Yeah.
All right, Chris. What do you guys at Bleeding Fool?
Well,
recommended
everybody's recommending everything over there. We got a lot of manga fans, and Micah is really digging into some of the output from Dynamite. But personally, I've been enjoying sort of something that I don't know if you guys have heard of DOSE, DOSE exclamation point. It's sort of a reinterpretation of superhero genre, which is real fun. I've been digging a lot of the stuff that Ablaze has been putting out with the Cimmerian and their Captain Harlock stuff. And, and I'm big on back issues and collected editions. That's sort of my thing right now. And I should say, since I'm on here, I'm helping Mike Barron with his crowdfund for a new comic book called Thin Blue Line. It's a graphic novel, 64 pages, and it's really controversial because it's a police officer winds up being the hero, dealing with the defund the police and the rioting and stuff that's going on while the city mayor is trying to placate the rioters. It's real cool. It's a good story. We've hit our goal, so we're going to be publishing it. And the artist, Joseph Arnold, is actually a active duty police officer. So if you want to check out Thin Blue Line, it's at thinbluelinecomics.com, which takes you straight to the Indiegogo page.
I backed it myself. Nice. Can't wait to get it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Drew. Appreciate that.
We've got Gabriel Hernandez from Weird Science recommending the hell out of Jennifer Blood #2. There you go. If you're looking for a comic recommendation, you go. Weird Science is one of the go-to sources as far as comic book reviews. Those guys actually do a good job. We got Infamy or Death, who's probably happy I've got my beard gone, but is definitely upset that we again said Mariko Tamaki is writing circles around James Tynan's slow decompressed comic writing ass. It's absolutely happening. He says, I recommend Barbarella #4. Please buy this comic. It's so good. Probably my favorite. That Batman Reptilian was hilarious. I agree with you. Batman was so funny. It was absolutely insane. It was not Batman, but it was funny. Please back Dynamite's Betty Page Indiegogo as well.
And Dynamite's coming up with the fan service. Their Army of the Dead stuff has been looking good. And, of course, Red Sonja. I'm a big Red Sonja fan, though, so I can't help it.
Absolutely. They have another license they're about to launch that I saw.
Evil Ernie.
What it is.
Evil Ernie, yeah.
Yeah, it's very good.
Buddy
Who else?
Stuart Sager's doing exclusive. Can't wait.
Nice.
Drew, what are you recommending this week? Besides Newburn.
Besides Newburn, got Superman 78, obviously.
Absolutely.
Swamp Thing, number 9 of 10. Just got extended to 16 issues.
Nice.
The Rush by Cy Spurrier. This is actually really damn good. It's a great horror story dealing at 1899.
On my list.
Rush. Really good. By Vault, yeah. Primordial #2 from Image.
Yeah.
Really good.
Jeff Lemire.
Orphan into 5 Beasts by James Stokoe.
Oh, man, you can't just sit there and recommend all the comics that everyone else
recommending everything. And
you are
the
recommending everything.
Last two, here we go, right here. Our exclusives for Dark Knights of Steel. #1. Terrific read.
If they go to the Comics Elite website, can they still get those? Or they still
Absolutely. And we're offering signed versions of Tyler Kirkham's cover he did for us.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
definitely want to get on that. We've got Kenneth Dowling, huge recommend for Superman 78. A great series. Doc, why did you go and ruin the entire episode saying Doc's the man? I love you,
I
but
am the
Wolverine
man.
versus Midnighter, you've never been okay. He's actually going against Doc. Thank you. I was like, this was the perfect episode until we got to this point, but he's actually shitting on Doc. I agree with this. I love you, but on Wolverine versus Midnighter, you've never been more wrong in your entire life, Doc. Chris, pleasure having you. Have a great one, guys. Well, thank you very much, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend and find some great comic books to read.
Yes.
Sorry, Doc. We're still having a great show. Just put it out there. What do you recommend, Josh? You recommended Batman Reptilian?
Look, if you want a Killer Croc that is partially made from alien experiments, who's a hermaphrodite and has a child alien that wants him to
breed,
yeah, sure, read it. I haven't made it to my comic shop this week, so I'm a little behind. I will say Superman 78, 100%, and then Dark Knights of Steel, a lot of fun. I think it just depends on if you want to. I know some people don't want to support Tom Taylor, so just go from there. But it's in line with his Elseworld stuff that's usually quite solid.
All right, Doc, you cynical son of a bitch. What are you recommending?
He recommends
I'm
Tom Taylor.
He recommends Tom Taylor.
I'm recommending Tom Taylor fall into a giant pit and then we just all forget. I'm also recommending the Magic Order Order 2, number 1.
Yeah.
I'm recommending if you missed out on Eric Canetti's Arc Athena, be on the lookout for when it gets distributed through Iconic Comics. And then I'm also going to recommend the campaign is ending soon. Go and The Anybody's by Brett Booth. Go
Scott
check
LaBelle.
that out. Yeah, Scott LaBelle, Brett Booth. Looks like it's going to be a fun book. I backed it. I'm really looking forward to it. So go check that out. And yeah, that's about it. I can't recommend really anything else this week.
If you like Brett Booth, just wait for Artist Lay Comics. He's got some awesome stuff.
I know.
Out.
I've been on his Patreon for years. So yeah,
I told Wes I've seen some art, guys. I've seen some art. So just wait.
I do want to put out a public service announcement. Remember, you have to. Are we falling backwards or are we jumping forwards?
We
This
are
week.
falling back.
fall back.
We're falling backwards tomorrow. We're actually here in a few hours in my time. So remember that. If you gave us a thumbs up, thank you very much. We almost got to 150. I only had to remind you guys one more time. If you didn't give us a thumbs up and you're about to leave the stream, give us one on the way out the door so people know on the replay this is definitely worth checking out. Had a lot of fun here today. We've got Kenneth Daly. One more thing. Wes, you are not crazy for liking Superman 2 over what? Terrence Stamp is great as General Zod. Neil before Zod. I love Terrence Stamp. He's so great, especially in Young Guns as well. Such a great actor, but he's the best Zod there's ever been. That was my selling point on Superman 2 when I watched that as a kid.
Did you guys say it like him? You guys say it like him. You guys say it Neo before Zod. You guys
before Zod.
Yeah,
And he had
Michael
the big guy that couldn't do his eyes right.
Michael. I'll be honest. Michael Shannon was a terrible Zod.
That was a terrible Superman movie, but
Yeah, I was about to say it's a terrible movie.
It was a wonderful Hyperion movie.
I don't think Michael Shannon role I've ever really liked is when he was banging Eminem's mom. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, 8 Mile.
He was on Boardwalk Empire. He was good on Boardwalk Empire. I say that.
okay.
The creepy FBI agent.
There have been some decent books this week. There's been some good stuff. We talked about a lot of them. I cannot stress enough and back up Drew on Orphan and the 5 Bs. I thought that book got canceled or something. We hadn't seen an issue in like 4 or 5 months. Maybe?
7 months. 7. We counted
James
it.
Stocco. If you like James Stocco's art, he's the writer-artist on this one. It is absolutely badass. It is bananas, nuts. It's hilarious, action-packed. It is a fantastic comic book. Also, amazing fantasy from Kari Andrews. It's going to be wrapping up somewhat soon. It's been a really fun series, really cool stuff. Takes you outside the Marvel universe if you need a little bit of a reprieve. To go check something out with your favorite characters of Captain America, Spider-Man, and Black Widow. And yeah, Superman 78 is where it's at, though. That's number 1. Still number 1 in my heart and better than Dark Knights of Steel, Drew. You said it wasn't going to happen. It happened.
Dark Knights of Steel, it blew my expectations away. I had so much
Well,
fun
it's Tom
reading it.
Taylor comic. I expected it to be trash.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, there you go. That's what happens. Yeah.
Lower those.
Thank you very much, everybody. And definitely thank you to Chris from Bleeding Fool for joining us. We've probably been almost a year since we had you on
I
last.
think so. Yeah. I think so.
We'll definitely
come
do this again.
Yeah.
And if Jimmy were here, what would he say, Doc?
I think he would probably tell you to wash your ass.
You stole his line again.
Yes, I did.